Well, it's another Friday night, folks. You know exactly what's going down on the Salt Mine Podcast official stream. It is ACL action, week number 4, and our first stop, in fact, in the Azanian group. So it's going to be Ole Miss Esports taking on the Ember Foxes squad. Two teams that it feels like we expect to be in playoffs. It feels like, well, I know Quacks over here is certainly a big fan of the Ember Foxes squad, but this Ole Miss roster that's been hyped up is by, Colomer. I'm going to plug our podcast one more time here, Quacks, really early and often here.
Yep.
He was a special guest on our episode. We didn't have one this week, the week prior, really hyping up how he feels about this team. Quacks, we're excited. I know you're especially excited to see how this new squad, this new look Land Sharks roster fits together.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, both of these squads are super exciting to see, right? I mean, Ole Miss were the team that absolutely dominated the Tier 3 ecosystem in spring, right? They had a trademark play style. They stuck to that style, and they dominated with that style. And a lot of that came down to Shogo, right? We're looking at Shogo really as the golden goose of the Land Sharks, and it seems like he has kept that title even through a different meta, even through having, now a different mid laner in Asila. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of action by Ole Miss in that bot side, and I'm curious to see kind of how the new meta, how AD carry items, being lowered in efficiency is going to affect his snowbally hyper carry-esque play style. I actually got to talk a little bit with Colomer before this series started, and he said that the team overall thinks that lane phase wise, Shogo and Rhino, who were dominant in those first 14 minutes, maybe a little bit weaker, less opportunity to get the ball rolling from the early phases, but team fighting, he thinks the team is incredibly strong. He thinks that the new style in, post 14-19 really favors them as a 5-man unit. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that shakes out in particular.
Yeah, certainly. Talks about how this new original Ole Miss can play a lot more stylistically diverse because you can lean gold dependency arguably now towards every lane in the game for Ole Miss. The Ember Foxes side, certainly a roster that a lot of people got hyped up on. I mean, they were slotted as a tier 3 team. I think personally, Quacks, you can always speak for yourself. I slotted them decently top towards the end of tier 3. Not the best start though to the season for this squad.
I plugged these guys tier 2. I believe I was the only one that did that. I was an Ember Foxes. You know what? I still am an Ember Foxes believer. And why wouldn't I be? This squad is full of a bunch of successful players, right? Kolthro, Reppy, Azog, Chukis, and Geigar in that top lane as well. All of them have had pretty phenomenal years, right? Kolthro recently on P&W's, the team that kind of came out of nowhere in the second open qualifier and dominated a lot harder than a lot of people thought they would. Reppy on Northwood, who conveniently 3-0'd Ole Miss in the CLOL Championship, right? And I'm sure Ole Miss and Colomer have not forgotten about that one. And then Azog, right? Polestar sub at the last moment, or rather just a Polestar player. And absolutely dominated, I would say. He had a ton of really good performances. Chukis needs no introduction. Of course, everyone knows the name. Geigar needs no introduction. Everyone knows the name. So this squad really is kind of an amalgamation of some of the best in Tier 3 coming together now to challenge a well-established org. And I think that's going to make for a heck of a story, Slayer. I think it's going to make for a heck of a series as well.
Couldn't agree more, Quacks, and we are starting that series off now. We are into game number 1 draft. Ole Miss Esports allocated that blue side start thanks to the sheet. The randomizer, to be honest with you, picked everybody's first game 1 side. So Ole Miss has the power of that powerful B1 pick. And as we get through these bands, I'm going to quickly say, big fan of Kolthro. Love the leadership he's showing. This is another roster. He had one in OQs that he helmed as kind of like the head coach, shot caller, doing it again with this Ember Foxes roster. Very excited to see what he's able to cook up in the draft and then execute on to the Rift. So far, though, I'm seeing a lot of bands that aren't exactly what I was thinking. I think there's going to be a pretty coveted B1 pick here for Ole Miss if they want like an Aurora, Ashe.
Yeah. Ember Foxes are paying a lot of respect over to Asylum. Normally, you would see Shogo be the guy that's kind of targeted in those B1s, making sure those 80 carries aren't available for Ole Miss to pick up in a B1, the Ashe, like you said, but it's the Lissandra, it's the Yasuo. I have to imagine they're going to ban something other than mid lane here. Aurora is also taken off the table, so that big solo lane flex not going to be up for either team here in game 1. I think you want to ban a big power pick, right? Yeah, the Syndra, of course, and Ole Miss gonna just immediately take away that Yone. I mean, why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, I mean, nerfs have happened. Indirect nerfs have happened. Nerfs are coming, and people still think this is the most overtorqued champion in the game of League of Legends. One extra added fact that I'll add on top of all the discourse we've heard about it is when you B1 this pick, you can flex it into either solo lane. It works really seamlessly, and I know for a fact that Stray and Asila can both play the Yone, but you had an audible reaction there to the turn from Ember Fox's Quacks. Skarner and Akali, yeah, those are Skarner in particular. We'll see if the nerfs aren't going to keep this guy down.
This draft is delivering already. I mean, Akali versus Yone in the mid lane, say less. That is exactly what I want to see from two powerhouses in Reppy and Asila, especially because this is the first time, Slayer, that you and I have seen Asila, right? So he's got a little bit to prove to probably a lot of people watching and to us casters who are going to be covering the game. Brand going to be picked up here on B2, and it's nerfed in the jungle. It's still a possibility, but maybe that's actually going to be Brand 80 carry. I mean, we've seen Shogo complain about the state of ADC, so you know, like you in solo queue, Slayer, he's going to just pivot on over. He's jumping ship straight to the APCs at this moment, along with that Rel. So a decent bot lane combo, and I actually think that's what we're going to see in the bot lane. Now, I think Ember Foxes want to get something on the board on that bot side, but they're actually just comfortable picking their top side. Instead, I mean, Cassante, a good blind pick champion. I will say, though, this is a little bit worrying. While Cassante is strong, Slayer, I want you to guess the win rate of this character in the ACL so far.
In the ACL?
Yep,
Well,
alone,
okay.
just the ACL.
I'm going to cheat a little bit because if you're asking me the question, it's bad. So I'm going to go with a solid 41% win rate.
20%, close.
Oh,
but
not
this
close.
champion cannot win for its life. It's also funny because Yone is the highest priority champion in all of ACL, and yet he is the champion that has, I believe it's like a 36% win rate. So it seems like teams don't exactly know how to play Yone. But Ole Miss, Collimer, this is an organization that knows what they're doing. They have been this dominant because they know the meta. They play it. They practice it. They know the ins and outs. So I think if any team can perform on this champion and really change that win rate around, it's certainly them.
Certainly will see if it comes down to the riff. We got through the second phase of bans. A lot of AD carry bans coming down here from both sides. Ember Foxes wanting to take away the Kaisa. They fear this could still be Icelandic Hero on the brand, but to go back to the point you talked about earlier, you mentioned it, I have moved on to like playing brand and not it was Shogo's tweet. I will admit it. Shogo inspired me to hop off Marksman and to play brand in the bottom lane, Syndra in the bottom lane, because he posted a picture of his OP.GG where he played about 10 games, 6 wins were all on AP carries. The 4 losses were all on his traditional marksman. So I would not put it past Shogo to be on this brand. Do love that pick for Rhino, though. If there's one champion that is synonymous with this long-standing player in NA, it is Rel. Rhino is a Rel god, so to get him on that is safety. Not a lot of safety with either one of these 80 carry picks if they lock in. Yeah, so it is going to be the brand in the jungle for Icelandic Hero. And we get the Shogo Draven to try and out-bully an Azog Lucian blind lock-in. Wow.
And now we got the counter pick here for Cassante. I honestly don't hate Olaf, right? You have a very short-ranged Ember Fox's comp, very CC heavy as well with Skarner and Cassante. Olaf deals perfectly into comps like this, but it's actually going to be that Yone top. It's going to be the Taliyah in the mid lane. Asila going to be picked with the roaming support. So, Uncle Sam might have left, but the playstyle might still see some shades of it here and there. That roam-heavy, weak-side mid-lane type of style that he coveted throughout his years or throughout his tenure in Ole Miss. And to top things all off, the Braum Lucian tried and true bot lane duo going to be the last lock-ins here for Ember Foxes. So it is going to be that Akali mid along with the Taliyah. So a bit of a more different, I would say less bloody matchup in the mid lane than what we were anticipating with that Yone going top. But it also means that a lot of opportunity stems here for Ember Foxes being able to get this Akali head. If they can get a lead early for Reppy, then you've got backline assassinations for days. The Brand, the Draven, the Taliyah, they're never safe from just getting absolutely deleted in any fight.
Yeah, certainly. I think Collimer cooked up on this one. I think especially the way he adjusted to the draft that Ember Foxes sort of started with, it's really smart here. I'm actually curious if they were feeling the brand in the bottom lane, then they saw the Lucian pick and maybe decided to pivot, but I definitely really like the Taliyah pick here. I know it's not necessarily the champion that comes first to mind when I think of a Sealess champion pool from what I've heard, but it's such a great Akali counter here. You see the Shroud gets dropped, you drop those Slippery Stones, her R dash, her recast of her E, any of those tries, immediate stun, and then you can obviously throw her out of it with the Seismic Shove as well. Taliyah should really fare well into this Akali that you're talking about for Reppy. Needs to find an early lead to be the pivot point for Ember Foxes.
And if it does find an early lead, I feel like it's so difficult for the Land Sharks to actually be able to deal with that pick, right? Because they do have a lot of engage, they have a lot of damage, but they don't have a lot of peel, right? Rel is going to be the champion that wants to go in. Yone is going to want to go in. Taliyah has that worked ground, so being able to stop any of those dashes could be valuable, but not if Akali simply clicks R on you before you can react. Right? There comes a point where it is so difficult to react to the combo of Akali and Reppy. This man has hands, right? Even though we saw him on Galio with RBM a lot of the time when Northwood were dominating the Seal top 32, this man was a Katarina one trick. You have to remember that he used to be a OTP of arguably one of the most mechanically difficult mid laners in the game. So he can pull off the combos, and it's going to be up to Ole Miss to combo him enough to put him down and make sure that that threat is not as prevalent in the mid to late game phases. Because if they can get this Draven running, then that's a great thing. But it never matters if the Draven, none of that would matter if the Draven just simply gets one shot.
Yeah, certainly. But we talk a lot about bridge champions, your ability to kind of like scale into a later phase, support, sometimes there are multiple bridge champions that pop off in the early game to scale into like, usually see it be a marksman, like a Jinx or a Zeri that can take over the game. It's kind of the reverse effect right now for Ole Miss. You're relying on Shogo and Rhino to be able to win their very volatile bottom lane, and you let Icelandic farm up, you let this Yone play into a very advantageous Cassante matchup in my mind that kind of just gets easier as this game goes on for Stray. Yeah. And then if that all plays out correctly, you'll have a very fed Brand, a farmed up Yone that can kind of just take this game out of control. You got enough CC with the Talia and the Rel. I kind of sound like an Ole Miss Glazer at this point with how much I really do like this draft a lot, Quacks. And the Lucian Braum is certainly going to be difficult. Like, it hinges a lot on the bottom lane winning, but it's Shogo Rhino.
For sure. Shogo Rhino are a tried and true, bot lane duo. Everybody knows their name that pays attention to tier 3, and for good reason, right? They are lane dominant to the end. So to your point, I'm wondering if maybe Ember Fox is, wanting to avoid getting the Draven 2-fed, wanting to avoid that Yone matchup getting easier as the game goes on. I'm actually curious if Ember Fox is maybe want to cultivate the lane swap. Right, I could totally see a world where Cassante wants to go against the Draven, wants to go against the Rel, deny, maybe just a little bit of experience. Two kills are better than one. If you only kill the Cassante, it's not as good as him getting a double kill in the bot lane. And on the other side, you also, maybe give your bot lane a much easier time because they are aggressive. They have that potential, and they would also to be aggressive, and they would also shut down that Yone, right? If you are able to put down that pick early on, have the lane swap be effective, then it's going to be difficult, I would imagine, for Stray to play out at the end of the day. So I think there is a very real possibility that Ember Foxes decide to play that card and potentially throw a plan or throw a wrench in Ole Miss's plan to just try and get, this Yone ahead, this Draven ahead as early as possible.
Yeah, certainly. And like we talked about, the Ember Foxes love Colthrow. Colthrow is going to be the main voice. And, the jungler being the most vocal person in a team. I'm actually going to take Collimer's quote about this when he was talking about music, which is funnily enough. But when you have your jungler as the main voice in a team, it can make the early game a lot easier to navigate your priorities into who you like, what Quacks is talking about, who you need to shut down, what lanes you need to play for. Having your jungler be the one to dictate all that is such a power. And Skarner certainly can create pretty on early. You just need to get level 3, get that X-Styles impact locked in. You got unique gank angles. And like we talked about, bottom lane is going to be a volatile matchup, and Stray should certainly get shoved into the Cassante. So there are angles for Colthrow to play the game he wants to early.
For sure. And I think Colthrow, the Skarner value goes up as you go further into the game. That Impale, if you're able to get into that back line and lock up Shogo or potentially even lock up Asila, then you're looking at a lot of kills for Azok. You're looking at a lot of kills for Repi, and you're looking at a very difficult game for the Draven to navigate, right? These team fights are going to feel so pivotal. There's so many abilities that this Draven is going to have to dodge, all while he's, trying to work around the team fight just to catch his axes. He's also going to have to get around all of these skill shots. So that feels like a very difficult thing for Shogo to do. But hey, this guy is the king of AD carries in the tier 3 scene. If he can't do it, who can? So we're going to have to see if the king can reclaim his crown here against some of the Ember Fox sort of suicide squad build of players. And I think it is just such an exciting series to see here, because whoever wins this, whoever is on top of this series should realistically be second to Pulsing Gunner. So I think this series has a lot of weight for both of these squads and for Zaun in general.
Certainly does. It's two of the tiered up teams from Zaun. It's the classic draft, a fun draft we've gone through. Ole Miss lean in a ton of damage, a ton of scaling. Ember Fox is more traditionally based in their front line and their flank angles. We already had fun with the draft, but that makes the action on Summoners Rift 10 times more fun. We'll get to that after a short break as we set things up on the production side. But game one, Ole Miss Esports taking on Ember Foxes, coming your way shortly. Told you it'd be a short break. Appreciate everyone sticking through with us as we kick off what is the series to watch for at least week 4 if you're a Zon Group fan. Obviously have a heavy hitter on the mainstream, but this will be your after-hours entertainment as we hit the Rift. Ember Foxes versus Ole Miss, and Ember Fox is already looking to start things off fiery. They find Shogo on his own, get the Braum passive down. Shogo flashes to make sure to deny the stun. But how key is it to get the flash off of Draven before minions even hit the waves?
It's huge, right? Especially for a champion like the Skarner, who, as we said in draft, wants to get on the map, wants to make the plays happen. And when you're going against Shogo, you're going against Rhino, you know the game plan here for Ole Miss. I have to imagine all of the players have had an experience going against Shogo at one point, having to be on the receiving end of his loaded gun. And I really want to see just a lot of plays being made around this bot side. And I think both teams are planning on doing just that.
Certainly have to track the junglers to see how that fares. We talked about in the draft, obviously, don't need to talk too much about player name status, more than just the natural jungle pass of these two champions. But Icelandic Hero on the brand, certainly going to want a full clear as quickly as possible. Then maybe reset, play for a first objective, not necessarily look for a gank angle that early on. Coldthrow, much different story. Expect him on this Skarner to try and impact one of those key lanes. You talked about the bottom lane already, but also maybe the top side once he gets those levels down.
A no lane swap, curiously enough, which means that Shogo and Rhino have ample opportunity to just walk up like this. You can see Rhino already licking his chops, just trying to go for any sort of stun, any sort of aggression onto Azog.
Oh, I mean, we talked about it in draft. This is why myself and Quacks were so excited. Feels like every one of these lanes is going to be somewhat volatile, but without even junglers showing up. And that is fun for so many reasons, but mainly the variance on how different this game could look coming out of the early game. It could be 12 to 10 in kills, and it could be 2 to 4 in kills. There is so much variance.
It could be bloody. I mean, I expect Ole Miss to want to shed blood as early as possible, right? We've got the Yone, we've got the Draven. It's all about the Axis, it's all about the blood. You can see both junglers pathing toward that bot side. Icelandic, a camp up now, so I'm interested to see if that extra bit of tempo allows him to maybe look for something in the lane. You can see how much of a shove Ole Miss have on this bot lane, so maybe he could look to try and counterpunch with the Skarner going down toward that bot side. I think 3v3, I 100% favor Ole Miss's chances of being able to win that and just accelerate their win cons much sooner than they anticipate.
Quacks, you talked about the bottom lane push going, but I mean, these solo lanes too are just all Ole Miss right now. Stray's getting poked at Geiger under his turret. Reppy already way below half HP. I actually believed allowed Asila to get a... He's just going to quick reset for his tier, but he has complete control over that lane. Finally, some of this pressure is alleviated with a Shogo reset, but those are mostly cheaters that have been earned by the Land Sharks because they've been able to win so early in most of their matchups. As I say that, though, Stry takes a very tanky trade into Geiger, and he just picks up the soul kill. That was a BM flash because he didn't even need it for the kill. But we have a mid lane gate coming across for Icelandic. Doesn't get the stun down. Do they have enough damage? Rep, he's trying to use the Shroud. He will be able to survive for now. He has backup coming. Coldthrow looking to target Asila, who is walking away slowly but surely. Coldthrow flashes to try and get a slowdown. Another flash comes across from Chuckies. They want this kill, but Asila gets a two-man seismic shove. Does not matter. Reppy's E lands, finds another kill. And it's a great open for Ember Foxes in both their solo lanes.
For sure, and I mean, really good fancy footwork there from Reppy. Manages to dodge out on so many abilities, buys time for his team to join on up, and then we see a beautiful roam and a combo from Coldthrow and Chuckies, and now they're just going to look for more. Stray does have Flash.
Stray has Flash. Jungler followed. Coldthrow gets the whole brand combo dropped on his head. Does pop the Conqueror for Icelandic Hero. Stray going to flash forward to try and kill off Geiger, who does not have that Flash, but the W lands. Trade of Junglers, but Stray is the more healthier one and will pick off the second straggler. Ole Miss find their get back through Stray on the top side.
Yep, 2-for-1 trade. Icelandic having the ability to reset for that item, comes back on the map with the Faded Ashes, and it makes the difference. Now the brand finally online here into this game. Really good sign there for Ole Miss. It was feeling pretty bad because, you know, they gave a kill over to the Akali, the one member we said couldn't get fed in this early game. They make up for it, though, as now Stray a bit low, but wants to try and shove this wave. We'll be able to do so with those double buffs. I imagine the hurt is really going to start to arrive onto Geiger.
Yeah, you can also kind of sustain, too, with the red buff healing. Doesn't necessarily have to take this reset. Some respect does have to come over to Geiger, as he is the first one to take to level 6. And we know, even with all the K'Sante nerfs, everybody was thinking would shut this champion down. The all-out damage is absolutely bonkers, it feels like, right now on this champion.
For sure. I mean, he is still K'Sante after all, but he's alone currently on the top side of the map. You can see Icelandic finishing up his second full clear. I would imagine close-ish to getting that level 6, but it's still a level up over Colthrow, who is still level 4, but doesn't have the priority. You can see both of these side lanes pushed in favor of Ember Foxes, which means that the grubs that have now spawned are denied from Icelandic. He has, you know, to be careful because he could get collapsed on here, but he is going to show. Is actually going to steal the one away.
Yeah, so he gets one back, and that's a happy trade you'll take, because now you know that you can still play to try and be the team that gets the Void Mites. With the 2-for-1 trade, though, we'll eliminate any double mites, which will cut down the snowball. You know, just a bit of sunlight on the top of the mountaintop, not enough for a total avalanche.
And I like the movement now coming out here from Icelandic. Rhino and Shogo as well, looking to go aggressive.
Rhino just pulls the trigger. Chucky's going to throw up the wall to try and block all the axes from Shogo, and maybe just a little bit too aggressive from Rhino. They get the flash off the rail for virtually nothing, Ember Foxes.
But they shove them off the wave. There's a push in bot lane in favor of Olm. Now Icelandic potentially looking for a dive, but they have to be careful. Azog has everything.
Rhino with the Hex Flash goes back in. Shield comes up. Icelandic does get the stuns down, but Rhino takes up the turret aggro, and they can't kill off Chookies in time. So Rhino's a sacrificial lamb. Icelandic still trying to just the damage. Colthrow and Reppy have roamed over. They're trying to make this more than just a free kill onto Rhino, but the top lane is also scruffling out. The Weaver's Wall comes down from Asila to try and get down here towards his bot side, but Shogo is just cut off and cut down by Reppy, who picks up his second kill on his Kia Kali.
Don't do it, Reppy. All right, he goes out. I was getting a little bit worried there of just going back in, going for the fights. You don't have resets on this champion, Reppy. But yeah, he manages to get that kill, picks that one up, and really good counterpunch there from Ember Foxes off of a questionable dive. It felt like, you know, Ole Miss were not respecting the summoners, the defensiveness from this Braum. He has the Guardian. He's also got the Unbreakable. It's so difficult to dive this duo. And yet again, a play that they tried to make, it is thwarted. And it just gives more power over to the carries of Ember Foxes at the end of the day.
And the carries of Ember Foxes that really need to find gold early. You talked about in the draft. Mission accomplished, especially for Reppy. Got some early gold on Colthrow. They have a gold lead. Ember Foxes do about 1,000. We do see that dragon taken by Icelandic hero. So they get one grub, and they get the first dragon to at least take a slight edge in the neutrals.
Yeah, so getting that late game stacking, right? We talk a lot about the early game for Ole Miss, but the late game is still very, very strong, right? The Talia is no joke once it hits those two items. The Draven is an 80 carry, right? So it doesn't matter if he's an early game centric champ. Once he gets those items, he's going to be very strong. And the Yone, of course, always strong in the late game. So there's a bunch of scaling on Ole Miss. Obviously, you want to get that train rolling as soon as possible, but getting those dragons taken as soon as possible, a good little consolation, and I have to imagine they're just going to try and focus their efforts on getting more and making sure Ember Foxes can't thwart them on that.
Obviously also have the scaling of this brand that will become very unbearable from Icelandic at a certain degree, but certainly not the expected early game, I feel, for Ole Miss, especially towards that bot side. Shogo still sitting on somewhat of a CS lead, and maybe Ole Miss trying to switch things up, as they do have Shogo show mid here to catch the mid wave far earlier than you expect. Potential overload for the second set of grubs, maybe, Quacks?
Grubs are coming up in, I think, about 30 seconds to a minute, so there certainly is an opportunity for Ole Miss to battle this one back, right? They got the first one on those grubs. Icelandic managed to steal one of those away, so getting all three of these next ones means that they will unlock the mites, if just barely. So already setting up for that win con, but I love the response here from Ember Foxes. They're rotating Chookies up. They're rotating Azog up. They are ready to fight. They're ready to brawl. They've got all their ultimates and basically all of their summoners up as well. So this is a full loadout for the Ember Foxes and a full loadout for Ole Miss as well, who are really only lacking those flashes on the bot lane from that earlier bot play.
Does seem like it's a kind of a full shift early here, potentially from Ole Miss. They send a Sela down to cover bot waves, but that gives Ember Foxes the opening to actually be the ones to overload for these grubs. They bring basically all 5 members into this top side, and gotta think there's no way for Ole Miss to even try and contest these. They'll just take what they can get in the plates and the waves shoved in, especially that solo XP on a Sela. A ton of gold going into this Talia.
For sure, no TP to react, meaning this Talia is going to get a lot of resources in that bot lane. But Ember Foxes are going to take more on that top side unless a fight breaks out, which it will.
Both bot laners drop their ultimates. Rhino goes in with the Magnet Storm, trying to cut down Chookies, who is far too low. It's the Soul Lanes diving towards the backside, but Stray will fall. Big Pyroclasm rakes across the other side of the fight, knocking down the Cassante, and now Reppy has to run out of the pit. We thought Ole Miss couldn't get away with the contest towards the grubs. They do just that, pick up a pair of kills, and lose the last grub to Cold Throw, but it's a Sela that sees an angle onto the very low Azog. He's going to gift the kill over to Shogo to cash him in a second, and when we thought the action was done rolling, it's far from it as Cold Throw flashes into Rhino, who happily say, hey buddy, picks up that kill to finally wrap up the first bloody fight of the game.
I mean, it's the first big team fight win coming out there from Ole Miss, and they get 2 kills onto Shogo as well. He had 150 plus stacks of adoration, so a big cash out. This man is going to the bank, gonna cash some fat checks after shoving this wave on the top side. So the win con that is the Draven finally gets a little bit of breathing room, but little does he know, here comes the Cassante.
Yeah, no breathing room here because Cassante's right on top of him with Reppy's damage is more than enough to shut down Shogo. They're diving for more. Rhino will flash away just to make sure it takes a couple more turret shots, but big double back over to the big bad Akali. Reppy is 4-0.
Big gold injection into Reppy. Good catch there, especially from Geiger. Recognizes that he has an angle, goes for it, sacrifices his life at the end of the day, but more kills to the assassin, more kills to the win con. That is Reppy. And yet he's going to reset. He gets his proto belt. So Akali on that first item now, primed and ready to fight this dragon coming up in a little less than a minute. Ole Miss, though, respawning, regrouping in that mid lane. You can see his Silas on that top side doesn't have the teleport or the Weaver as well, so he's probably going to shove this and go immediately down toward the map to join up with the team. But hang on!
Icelandic gets a double full brand combo with the passive involved as well. Chookies and Azog are far too low, and the Whirling Death snags the second. Icelandic earns the first. It's a double kill once more for Ole Miss.
Ole Miss just picking up the pieces. Ember Foxes wanting to play around that bot side, wanting to make sure they're primed and ready to go for the dragon, but they get punished. They face check. It's now 2 kills, like you said, Slayer, over to Ole Miss, and likely a dragon as well, as the bot lane members of Ember Foxes that are now just respawning are going to be too late to join on up.
This is as free as it comes. There are a lot of pings coming down from Ember Foxes.
Yeah.
They might look to just kind of fight, but after this dragon goes down, there is no smite from Icelandic. We'll still pick it up. Cold Throw forces a Shogo flash, but still gets him with the impale. Stun lock, so he can't pull him back towards his team, but does Reppy have an angle in? Certainly seems not, as Shogo's able to get back with Stray's help off to the side. All 5 members of Ember Foxes show towards this bot side. They might be able to cut off Stray, but he gets the teleport off. There's no way for Reppy to cancel it.
What a baller play coming out from Stray there to escape, and it is the heist there for Ole Miss. I mean, we said it. Ember Foxes, they lose 2. They lose control of that bot side river. They go in anyway, trying to look for something, but they're just too late. They're too late for the dragon. They're too late to interrupt the teleport. They're too late for the kills. And what we thought was a really good early game from the Ember Foxes is slowly falling apart 14 minutes into this game as we kind of reach in toward the middle phase of this match. It feels like Ole Miss have finally found their footing.
Wow, and found themselves a bountiful gold lead, and they'll continue to dominate the neutral buff sweepstakes. Rift Herald not going to be long for the world. Icelandic smites to secure it. Once more, though, Ember Foxes showing up in droves.
Oh my gosh,
and they might have a pick on a Shogo. Geiger in a 1v1, going to pull him into the all-out. Can Rhino save his AD carry? That's absolutely no. Still drops the Magnet Storm, trying to kite back, but they get the knockups onto Stray as well. The Brown passive does not take over, so Stray will survive just for now. And now the gun is pointed at the other opponents. Ember Foxes on the back foot themselves with Azog far too low to try and push any further.
He's taken very low there, but it's a 1-for-1 trade. Geiger, he won't yield. Somebody tell him to yield, and he manages to put Shogo down in the nick of time. What is it with the bot laners face checking in this game, Slayer? That's like the third time in game number 1.
Yeah, face checking on low range AD carries, by the way. There is like no room for face checking on Lucian or Draven, bar none to any other marksman. Like even you don't like it on Ezreal or Zeri, they get over the wall. Neither of these guys
don't like it on anyone.
Yeah, but like at least those two get over the wall. These two can't unless it's a really short wall for the Lucian.
It certainly is a tough life, but it is still a good one for Ole Miss. I mean, sure they lose Shogo in that exchange, but he is still 3-3. Is still plenty healthy, has a lot of gold in his pocket, and Ole Miss still going to play for that win con. But while we're talking about the Draven, it being able to increase in power as the game goes on, we also have to keep in mind that there is a 2-in-1 brand, a 2-in-2 Yone. The first items are being complete across the board, which means that Ole Miss's power is really starting to accelerate across all avenues and not just the one in the bottom.
And on the flip side, it's the same conversation the Quacks you were so great at pointing out. Reppy, you need to get a lead on the Akali. Mission accomplished. Bigger goal. Got to carry this game for Ember Foxes. 4-0 on this Akali. Got to be sitting on a good bit of gold as well, catching a lot of these waves. Need to execute one of these main damage dealers. For me, it feels like Shogo or Icelandic need to get knocked down if you want Ember Foxes to be able to crawl back this 3K gold deficit.
And it certainly seems like that's a possibility, right? Because Reppy is good at assassinating, getting out. Extended fight is a completely different story. You might take one down, but then you've got to deal with the now first item Yone, first item Brand. How are you going to deal with them in the extended exchange? It feels so difficult for Ember Foxes to play out a lot of those longer fights. So I really am interested to see if they could get another carry fed here on Ember Foxes. I'm really looking at that Lucian to start getting those items, start getting that gold, because now you're staring down the barrel of a sword and a sheath as Stray wants the solo.
Oh, Reppy wants to flex his 4-0 muscles. All out came out from Geiger. Stray still holding on to that Fate Seal. Maybe looking for an angle back in with the Soul Form. Trying to cut down the angle to go for the Fate Seal, but might not even need it. Flash away from Geiger. He's going to lose his all-out juice. Good dash and flash to get away from the new W onto the Cassante. And Stray has himself a flashy solo kill.
There we go. That's what top laners are all about. They want the island. They want the solo kill. They want the glory that comes with it. And Stray fires straight, and he gets that solo. Geiger on this Cassante. KDA, not the biggest factor on this champion, right? You are the big frontline, but 2 and 5 really seems to be struggling into this game thus far. And it feels like with items coming through, gold coming through from a lot of the Ole Miss players, it's just going to get more difficult. They've got the 2 dragons. Ember Foxes, realistically, you want to contest this, but with how weak you are, except for Reppy on this Akali, it feels so difficult to do.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a very unique angle from Cold Throw to find a not easy to land Impale to grab a bunch of these members and open up for Reppy and Azog to drop all their burst-oriented damage like you were talking about, Quacks. But for now, maybe potential NA ramming, but it got opened up by one seismic shove. All is needed in the setup department for Icelandic to pick up the first kill. Chookies is down, and now Ember Foxes might have to retreat. Coldthrow gets stunned up. Reppy goes in with the Shroud, still gets knocked into a stun. Can't find angle to dash forward. Does with the ultimate, but immediately recasts back. He doesn't want to risk his life.
And I was going to say rose-tinted glasses. Maybe Coldthrow could get a 3-man impale onto the backliners of Ember Foxes, but it is just a gray. It is just a pair of gray tinted glasses for them as Reppy may be in trouble.
Stray does not get the solo kill. It was so close, maybe 20 hit points off. Reppy's still going to have to back up. Does give Geiger a window in. Rhino is nearby, but they're both still lower HP than Geiger is. How far will he like to extend into Fog? Question is not far enough. Dragon stacking a flowing for the Land Sharks. They are now in tune for a 24-minute Ocean Soul.
It is a 24-minute Ocean Soul on the table. And I just really wonder how Ember Foxes are planning to kind of reverse this game around, because it feels like at this point you've gotten outscaled. 2 items coming in for a lot of the carries. All of the members of Ole Miss have sort of hit their stride and are going to continue to do so. Meanwhile, it feels like all of the sort of frontline setup heavy champions, the Braum, the Skarner, the Cassante haven't really been able to do anything this game for the past 10 minutes. So I really feel like it's a difficult game for them to play. Again, rose-tinted glasses. Maybe we see a sick combo come out from Cold Throw, but barring any of that, it feels so difficult.
It has been very hard for Ember Foxes to find any way in after such a good early start when Ole Miss were a lot more spread out. Now that they're back together, stacking as 5, stacking as 4, playing their style of stretching the map and overloading on damage to whoever they can find. It has been all Land Sharks, and maybe their next spot lies in the Baron Pit.
I have to imagine that's where they're looking, right? We can see Ole Miss materializing around this top side. They've got vision. Cold Throw and Azog think they're safe in that bush, but they aren't. You can see the pitch coming through from Ole Miss. Maybe they're just looking to engage.
Oh, Rhino, always the big engage. Gets a ton locked up with the Magnet Storm. They have Azog separate on one side. Chucky's going to flash to try and save him. That means they might lose their jungler. Cold Throw goes down. Reppy's teleport's too late. Geiger's teleport is on the wrong side of the fight, and Stray wants to go all out for it. Gets the coast with the Fate Seal. Uses the Soul Form to try and get enough damage to execute Geiger. One more Q, one more slash. Gives Stray a killing spree. Opens up the Baron Pit for free in the name of the Land Sharks.
And Reppy is resetting, doesn't have the teleport. There's no opportunity for Ember Foxes to fight this. They are 2 members down, one of which is the jungler, like you said, Slayer. And choo-choo-choo goes the Ole Miss train. The Land Sharks find their prey, and they're going to continue to do so. Their next meal gonna be this Baron. They're going to rep the purple, and they're looking for this top side. They're just going to go and explore it. They are going to look to carve it out in the name of Ole Miss. And boy, oh boy, does this squad look strong in game 1.
Look just as strong as advertised by some. And now they're going to start sweeping up on that standing gold like you were talking about, Quacks. They are the first to knock down all the outer turrets, as Ember Foxes is still just hunting to try and find their first. With no vision on the map, how can you even overextend for a pesky mid-tier 1 turret? You can see they're just trying to overload, maybe towards this bot side to find that objective bounty gold.
And they're trying to get anything on the map at this point. They recognize that this game is so damn difficult to play. Sure, they've got the 4-0 Akali, but what good is that going to do you realistically at this point? Akali goes in, maybe gets a kill, but getting out is a completely different story, right? And killing the other Fed members of Ole Miss seems like an impossibility at this point in the game. So with the Baron, they're going to get mid control, move on down toward the bot lane. They're going to push that one out. They're going to siege so much more of the map. And unless Ember Foxes can get a flank TP in, unless they can get maybe a kill onto Shogo, onto Icelandic Hero, I think, at least for the time being, it is just going to be them claiming this bot side.
You can see the power of any Yone comp right now, but hold on, Azog might go for an execute onto Sela, trying to dodge out on the seismic shove, drops the entire Lucian combo, flashes under the turret. Azog, veteran move there to find himself a classic Lucian solo kill. Maybe we're just having 1v1s. This is looking like 2KO going out with Reppy and Stray in their own, and it's going to be Stray that's going to find another win, back to the soul form, gets himself away from Geiger. Stray is showing out on that overpowered Yone pick.
I mean, congratulations, right? You got the kill onto Reppy. You got the kill onto a Syla. There's solos across the board.
Oh,
Trey
no.
wants one more though. Holy moly, that was certainly something. That was a Yone moment.
Quacks, it ain't over yet. That was just Act 1. Act 2 is Geiger trying to find the kill. He'll flash over the wall to get the big shutdown onto Stray. But that's only one shutdown. And Quacks, what did it cost them on the map?
It cost them an inhibitor. It cost them their entire bot side. And it might have just costed them the soul. Azog won't be up for another 20 seconds. Reppy just getting out onto the map, but has to clear this wave that is now crashed into the turrets, the Nexus turrets to be more specific, for the Ember Foxes. So will take a little bit of time for him to join up on the team. And the whole time, Ole Miss are back on the map, ready to fight.
And Rhino looking to use the spear as proverbial rhinoceros horned to start off a fight here. Holding the front line strong. Cold Throw, the Impale. It only finds Rhino. They drop all of these ultimates onto the tank Rel, and they're going to whirl themselves to a double gray screen. Shogo mops them up. Icelandic finds the background actors. See you later for a double. Geiger, Reppy gets into the shroud. Has to use his peg for execute to execute himself away from the fight, and Azog falls to the might of the burning man on fire. because Ole Miss are super hot in game one.
Icelandic hero coming in like Superman there, gets the triple kill. They get the dragon as well. All the advantages coming through for Ole Miss, and Reppy, potentially the final one to fall, will manage to get away. But it feels like that might have just sealed the deal, Slayer.
Ocean Soul, an open avenue to the Nexus turrets, and all the gold a League of Legends player could ask for. Icelandic 6-1, Shogo 5-3-5, 3 items on the Draven. At this point, they might just slap them with their wallets, Quacks.
Gigantic flank TP coming in from Geiger. Look at the map. He's back there, but they see him. Ole Miss know where this Chisante is. They're anticipating the flank, but maybe Shogo won't be able to get out.
Good flash from Shogo, creates some distance. Geiger ults Icelandic hero to try and get to the 2 main damage dealers. This is what Ember Foxes needed to do so much earlier, and you can see why. Without the gold, they just crumble going for their picks onto Shogo and Icelandic. Reppy is flail flashing to try and at least find one, but it falls flat on his face, and that's going to wrap it up. Ole Miss Esports confidently going to take game one in our banger Titan v Titan matchup of the Zon group.
And a little bit of sweet revenge coming out there for Ole Miss in game number 1. It might not be Northwood, but they'll take the Northwood mid laner. He is the final one to fall here in game number 1. Ole Miss with a new mid laner, a new meta, a new look, are looking strong here in the Zon division.
Yeah, new mid laner, new look, and who was it that impressed? Oh, right, the guys that are already there. I mean, what a game from Shogo. Icelandic hero. Stray was awesome in his 1v1s, but, you know, we talked about it. How much chaos you can create with Rhino and Shogo on the bot side early. How much chaos you can create with this Yone pick on the top side. It did exactly what I was afraid of. Icelandic just farmed up free in the early game, Quacks, and then you let Brand rush to 2 items. If you're positioning correctly, you're hitting your stuns. This guy does obnoxious damage, and you really saw it towards the end of that game 1.
And we saw spades of good gameplay coming out there from the Ember Foxes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say I'm not going to say, it was a complete stump, right? Because it wasn't. It felt like Ember Foxes had a solid early game plan. They managed to rotate around the map really well. They got control of the grubs in particular, but one fight around the second spawn of grubs, it really felt like that was kind of the tipping point. They gave the cash out, 2 cash outs over to the Draven. Shogo finally got online. They held on to their lead. They never let go, and it really felt like Ember Foxes could do nothing, right? They got outscaled. So it is what it is. A good showing from Ember Foxes, but Ole Miss, it's the Shogo show, man. Even with a new mid laner, this guy is the pinnacle of 80 carry players in Tier 3.
Pinnacle of 80 carry players, indeed. But Azog will have a shot at revenge. Ember Foxes will have a shot at revenge as well, as a turbulent start to the season. Might get a bit worse here, but they have control in the palm of their hands. Side selection available to them if they want to get on that blue side to try and B1 pick that Aurora, that Yone we just saw Stray pop off on. Oh, excuse me, I forgot. We're fearless. Say goodbye to Yone.
Yes.
So no Yone.
Say goodbye.
Aurora, Ashe, coveted B1 picks. Maybe they want the counter picks available. We'll have to see what Coulter decides to cook up after we go to another short break. On the other side, we'll be live with Game 2 Draft. Back in action here on the B stream. Ole Miss Esports taking on Ember Foxes. Ole Miss 1-0 up in the series, staying on the same sides. Quacks, Ember Foxes
Yep.
wanted that red side.
And I mean, it's really no surprise to see why. I mean, the counter pick that Red Side offers is really, really valuable. So I'm interested to see what they're going to be for B5. But for the time being, I am just really looking forward to seeing what Ole Miss are going to cook up for B1 because we had quite the spicy draft. Colomer, kind of Gordon Ramsay with the Draven, with all of those picks, and it really culminated in a dominant game one win. If we look past, I would say, those first 8 minutes. So I want to see what's going on in game number 2, what Ember Foxes have in the oven to try and counteract this hyper-aggressive style, and most importantly, what they're going to try and do to shut down Shogo, as it is going to be the Aurora as the last ban. LeBlanc going to be the first pick up here in game number 1. The Cinder was available, but it seems like Mr. Asila has a preference.
Yeah, wants that LeBlanc, slams it home, grabs it B1. So we'll see exactly how Reppy and Ember Foxes want to respond to that. LeBlanc, you know, it's funny because it's almost hard to kind of punish a LeBlanc, especially early on, and that's not what Ember Foxes are going to do. I think they're going for a much different approach.
Going out for straight up lockdown, it seems like they're going to put a lot of faith in the Cold Throw Lee Sin. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see a potentially Renekton paired up with that as well, just to further those lockdown tools for LeBlanc to hit, or for Lee Sin to hit those Qs. But for the time being, I would expect Ole Miss to try and counter with a jungler of their own. Sejuani is available, also really good at making sure the Lee Sin has a tough time in team fights, but they're actually going to go for the Viego. So carry on carry junglers here into the jungle. This is also kind of an Icelandic special. When he does play those carry champions, Viego is one of his go-tos along with the Lee Sin. So that was partially a deny from Ember Foxes as well. I want to see what they pair up with this as well. I imagine they're probably going to go for support. Yeah, Leona going to be the pick up here. I was going to say maybe something like an Alistar was possible, but it is going to be the Sun Lady herself. And now Ember Foxes likely wanting to get some form of counter on that bot lane. I think Nautilus could be good here if you want more lockdown. I think Alistar could also be good here. Something that just makes sure the Lee Sin is, able to get into the thick of things as, much as possible.
Very interesting to see maybe the evolution of Icelandic heroes champ pool. I feel like, on the old Miss. That's funny.
The Ole Miss.
Old Ole Miss is, a lot of Sejuani, a lot of tank duty, a lot of engage-oriented duty. And if these are the only 2 games we'll see, it'll be him playing a very good Brand and likely a very good Viego, which is very, very interesting for, the continued discussion around how different does Ole Miss look after their switch up.
Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like Icelandic Hero always had the potential to sort of break out into some of those carry junglers. Occasionally, we would see spades of that, but oftentimes, right, it was overruled by Shogo being the more de facto carry that Ole Miss always sort of wanted to pivot to. So I certainly think that more faith is being put into Icelandic here in, the fall time later as the evolution of Ole Miss, like you said, Slayer has continued, but this is certainly something that I think Icelandic is used to being able to do, whether it be from solo queue or simply his style of play. I think he always has been able to play those carries. It's just now I think Ole Miss are more willing to let that be a thing, as we are going to finish the second phase of bans, all 80 carries except for the Gwen, and an 80 carry going to immediately be snapped up for Azog in the form of a Varus.
Probably his most played, at least from when we saw him in Qualifier 2 of the Summer 2020.
Yeah.
Summer
definitely.
2024 NACL qualifiers. Always a mouthful, that one is. But yeah, so Galak in the Varus. I'll be interested to see if he does, go for the Comet Poke one, the on-hit. Carries are such up in the air. We'll have to see what the adaptation looks like for Azog and Ember Foxes. Stray, though, on the flip.
Maybe? I'm thinking maybe we might honestly see a Zeri. I wouldn't hate Zeri for Shogo.
We'll have to see. They've got the Gnar.
You need someone mobile. You definitely need a mobile ADC into this comp. Or maybe you don't. What do I know?
Okay,
that's better. Woo! Let's go.
Shogo Vayne. I wonder, because Misfortune faced
Draven Vayne.
Draven Vayne.
I love it. This is cinema here.
Face value though, like I understand the misfortune pick. You're going for like the solar flare, like Gnar ultimate combo, just to like knock him down. But if we're talking the player, like Shogo does not play those AD carries that are like ult bots. They don't have a lot of flexibility in mobility. This is more up Shogo's alleyway. So he's going to go for the Vayne. Jax is the R5 for Geiger, so he gets his counter pick matchup. Definitely one of the S tier top players right now, Jax is. So we'll see if that's going to be a pressure point for Ember Foxes, as they wanted the red side. So you got to think this is the matchup that they wanted to put Geiger on a champion to slam Stray.
And also a good counter pick into the whole concept of what Ole Miss want to do here in game 2, right? They're a very team fight oriented squad. Those ultimates, like you mentioned, Slayer, really big on the side of Ole Miss. And Ember Fox is being able to have that side lane threat into the Jackson. I would honestly also say the Rise is probably going to spend a lot of time on side lanes, just looking to farm as much as possible. Really just trying to spread thin this team fighting comp. And I think Ember Foxes have the ability to do that with those side laners, but they also have a lot of pick potential, right? So I'm looking at them to control the jungle, catch Ole Miss off on a lot of these rotations where they're trying to respond to defend their tower from the Jax, from the Rise. And I think that's how we're going to see them accelerate this game around the mid to late game. Early game, I think we'll see some action from Colthrow in the Lee Sin. I would expect nothing less from a player like Colthrow who knows the champions like Lee Sin, their ins and outs, their ups and downs. But beyond that, late game is definitely a big power point for Ember Foxes that I imagine they just want to get to as quick as possible.
We'll have to see if they can get there in time to scale up, but it is certainly an interesting thought, Quacks. Well, I'm just excited for another like completely fisticuffs bottom lane. This is about to be Leona Vayne.
Yup.
Nautilus Varus, and I still think it's going to be like the lethality low econ Varus, so the one that wants to fight in lane. Man, this is going to be fireworks again, and it's so awesome to have on a Friday night.
For sure. I mean, hey, this is how we spend our Friday nights here, Slayer.
True.
At its finest, Draven, Varus. We've got a Rise as well, a more, a lesser orthodox pick here by the Ember Foxes. So these are the two teams that want to try and be those sort of second place going out of Zon, or potentially even challenge Pulsing Gooners for that first place spot in the division. And they're pulling out all the stops. They're pulling out the pocket picks. And I think this is a really cool look into both of these squads and sort of how they will operate going forward.
That is certainly the question we have asked. Many have asked, not even just ACL fans, collegiate fans of Ole Miss. Ember Fox still trying to respond to what has been a sort of rough start. I am, off the top of my head, I'm forgetting exactly who they're upset by. Oh, yes, it was...
Northwood?
No. Ember Foxes.
Oh, Ember Foxes. They were upset by...
Cupid Esports, right. So
Cupid, yep.
So this is like a really important match for Ember Foxes in the regard that, yes, like if you want to play for second still, you at very least have to beat Ole Miss so they don't have the head-to-head over you. But, a lot of people are really high on Clown Gaming. A lot of people are really high on... I'm still a fan of St. Clair, even though we saw them have a bit of a rush showing against Pulsing Gooners last week. Those are the two teams that are threatening to take Ember Fox's spot. Actually, technically are ahead for Ember Fox's spot thanks to that upset. Yes. So you need to start finding ways to mediate losing to teams below you by punching above your weight class.
Absolutely. And Ole Miss looking to go pound for pound in this weight class, right? They are going blow for blow. This is a squad, Slayer, that does not settle for second. They want the crown. They want to be the kings of Azan. They want to be the head honchos, and it certainly feels like after game number 1, they are pulling out the picks to do so here. Open it up with a Vayne as well to just continue that chaos train that they love to keep being the conductors of. And it's going to make for an absolutely banger game 2 that might, who knows, maybe lead us into a game 3.
It's a classic staple of Ole Miss. They love to draft with Collimer aggressive but strategic. And boy, did it pay off in droves in game number 1. The question now remains, is it enough to get them home early with a 2-0 sweep over Ember Foxes? There's only one way to find out, folks, and you know the one thing that's standing in the way of that, another short spectator delay break. But on the other side, we'll be live from the same battle arena we all know and love. See you in a couple of minutes. Here we go once more, folks. Ole Miss on your blue side again. Ember Foxes looking to inspire fire from the red side once more to keep this series alive for a banger game number 3. Or will we see Ole Miss establish themselves as closer to Pulsing Gooners than the field is on? Boy, one thing I do know, Quacks, however we get to one of those two results is going to be absolutely mesmerizing with the draft that we had.
For sure, it's going to be blow for blow, pound for pound. A lot of scrapping, I can imagine, especially toward that bot side. I think the top side, Stray and Geiger, we're not going to see a ton of action between the Jacks. And the Gnar, this is a very iconic matchup that sort of just leaves both top laners stronger for the late game and wanting to do different things. With the bot lane, a completely different story, right? You've got a Vayne, you've got a Varus, you have got powerful picks on both sides. So both junglers, I would imagine, want to at some point make their way toward the bot lane. You can see Colthrow starting on those Raptors. Icelandic going to start on his as Raptors as well. So both junglers just looking to get a bit of a CS leg up before I would imagine they inevitably are going to be camping those bot lane bushes.
It's another game where I, once again, state that Colthrow has the ability to find an early lead for Ember Foxes. I think he accomplished that in game number 1 with the Skarner while Icelandic Hero was trying to farm up. Similar scenario here with this Lee Sin versus Viego matchup. So we'll have to see how Colthrow decides to approach his jungle clear.
And it seems like Colthrow, going to clear up that top quadrant, does have a bit of a choice as to what he wants to do after that. Can cut across and maybe try to interrupt Icelandic, but Icelandic is pathing up, and you can see the bot wave is pushing in favor of Ember Foxes, so I would imagine probably just a full clear in the future for Colthrow for the time being. I don't think we're going to see too much action from the jungler of the Ember Foxes. In fact, I don't think the Ember Foxes are really looking for too much action in these first few minutes as a whole, but potentially a different story for Ole Miss. This unpredictability of the squad cannot be overstated. They are looking for a fight when you least expect it.
Certainly are. Level 3 comes across for Asila. Immediately goes into Repi, drops the chain, gets a ton of damage down. Colthrow has to come over just to assist, give him a shield, especially with Icelandic Hero threatening from the mist.
Repi, pretty low, does have that flash available, but you've got to be careful of that electrocute combo.
Oh, and he's just going to get it right to the face. You called it, Quacks. First blood to Asila, the new standout mid laner for the Land Sharks.
Yeah, taking Repi and giving him the solo bolo treatment. Does expend the flash. Repi able to teleport back to this wave, but an early kill onto LeBlanc this early, never ever going to feel good for the Ember Foxes, at least for the time being. I do think, though, that once the game sort of pans out, there is a lot of health and a lot of armor stackers and magic resist stackers by that extent on the side of the Ember Foxes. So this LeBlanc, if it isn't able to, get more kills, more resources in the early game, potentially will have a tougher time later down the line. We saw this in game number 1 where Repi got all of the resources you could dream of on the Akali, but just later couldn't get those assassinations, and the pick sort of fell flat on its face.
Certainly something to worry about. Good call out, especially into the Nautilus, Rise, Jax that can all afford and also assimilate any sort of those MR stacking items into their kit. But certainly fun to see Asila sort of unleashed fully with this LeBlanc pick. Was good on the Talia, certainly, don't get me wrong, but certainly more of a facilitator, especially in the comp the Talia was around. This time around, the LeBlanc is just the showstopper, especially in a team draft like this one.
And I like the look from Chookies, looking for all of those hooks, but my friend, you do not have bait on. The fish aren't going to grab the line if they just see the metal hook. And it seems like Ole Miss's bot lane want nothing to do for the time being with any sort of action.
Oh,
but the mid lane does.
Yeah, good dodge from Repi on the chain, but Colthrow is continuing to try and match Icelandic. They have Chucky's first roam over, slow lands, both supports arrive, Sonic Wave down for Colthrow, Dredge Line on the head of Asila, good root, ton of damage through, Clone comes out from Asila, will be able to distort over the wall, but they've got Azog caught, trying to get back towards his team, he will flash, and now everybody's just in the meat grinder, but it's the reset through for Icelandic, piercing arrow lands onto Asila, Chogo now trying to cook, but he's getting run down and cut down, as he's the only one remaining from the Ole Miss side on the bot lane. 3 kills for Ember Foxes, 2-0 on Azog.
I mean, that looked like a really questionable angle there from Azog, as now Chucky's taken very low. But Chogo not going to be able to find that last tick to receive the kill and the gold that comes with it. But Azog walking in, literally going through fire to join up with his team. But he's the one that gets the double kill. He's the one that receives the gold. And all of a sudden, Ember Foxes are in a kill lead here.
In a kill lead, sitting on a slight gold lead, and have the gold where they want it. Especially now that we know this Varus is the lethal tempo Varus, is going to go for that on hit. So to really back your point from earlier, Quacks, Ember Foxes need to just kind of steady the course to scale in this game. Well, how nice is this a scaling comp when you're able to find a lead in that early phase?
For sure, and they're not pushing it as well. They know the grubs are being started up by Ole Miss. They're not going for the... They don't have the prio in any side lane, so they're just floating on down toward the bot side, right? We can see Coldthrow's going to start up that dragon. It's the objective trade that we all know and love. So I love the restraint coming out here from Ember Foxes to not overplay their hand, not give up the advantage as soon as they lost it. And it's going to mean that these carries can have a little bit more time to pan out. You can see Azog catching that wave in the bot lane. You can see Reppy assisting with that dragon. And for the time being, it's a slow game. It's an uneventful game. But Ember Fox is managing to come away with an even trade in objectives at the end of the day, something that they are very much in favor of doing.
Certainly are. Rhino, Hex flashing over that wall. Wasn't expecting 3 members, but Seal's damage maybe might keep Ember Foxes thinking twice about this engage. Rhino goes in, finds the Zenith Blade onto Coldthrow, and that's going to get him killed. Reppy cashes in that kill, gets the root down onto Asila as well. Dredge line lands, they're locking the block in place. Clone comes out, Asila turns with her own damage. Icelandic whittling away with the Blade of the Ruined King. Will find himself in possession. Dredge line down now onto Reppy, but he doesn't want to push his luck too much because Coldthrow's still hanging around, and Reppy goes on a killing spree. Another trade of kills where Ember Foxes come out on top.
The supports, their eyes are turning red here, Slayer. They want blood, but they are the ones getting bloodied at the end of the day. Icelandic gonna fall, and that'll be the end of the trade. But it's Reppy who is the big winner, the breadwinner of that exchange. Now 3-1 on the rise. Not a good thing for Ole Miss to deal with. This is a champion that usually gets its power from farming and late game Astray. If you're looking for a solo kill, but Geiger is going to respect a little bit.
Yeah, Rise is a champion that in much of his discourse, especially in competitive scenarios, is just easy to punish early, not quick enough to become the monster he can be. Yeah. We're going to get a rare opportunity to witness neither of those boxes being checked by Ole Miss, really. I mean, there's still time for the first one, but that Roa is already done for Reppy and already stacking up.
Really big deal for Ember Foxes. They've got 2-0. They've got a 2-0 Varus. They've got a 3-1 Rise. Their carries are very online here in game number 2. So they're sitting on a very good game state at the current moment. The big question is, can Ole Miss turn that one around? As Geiger going in, pops the ultimate. Stray is really close to Mega, but I wonder if he actually looks to go aggressive here.
I don't see why. You are completely in Geiger's head right now. It's red-free. That's what you saw in that engage. Geiger just wants to break this cycle of getting shoved under turret, not able to farm his own wave in the mini form, and then losing damage in turret plates. Maybe Stray does go for that dive like you were talking about, Quacks, but with the ult not landing the stun, we'll have to let that one go.
I also believe he had Counter-Strike up at that time, so it would have been difficult even if that shove lands and the damage does come through. So Geiger going to be able to get that reset off. TP is close to coming back up, but he might miss this wave, maybe half of it as well. Or who knows, maybe Azog will pick it up as those grubs are coming up a little less than a minute from those, and you can see all of the members of Ember Fox just sort of drifting up toward this top side. I think we might have our first big brawl of the game here, Slayer. This objective teams want.
Markedly, though, there will be no Shogo as the engage comes down for Chookies, knowing they have the man advantage. They're just going to burn right through Rhino's health bar with the power of Reppy and Coldthrow. Way too easy, and now I feel like a 3-3 grub split is all but inevitable.
And not only was it the man advantage, but it was the level advantage. Chookies had that ultimate and immediately with blood in his veins, with the depth charge ready to pop. They managed to get the kill onto Rhino. They will claim the top side of the map. And I love the rotation from Geiger on the bot lane as well. Shogo was looking forward to getting so many plates, knowing that Azog was on that top side. But the Jax picks it up, denies so much gold from the carry of Ole Miss. And it seems like Ember Foxes are going to get away with just murder at all points of the game. They are in the lead.
Oh boy, deja vu from game number 1 though is Ole Miss stepping up to contest Grubs, and they will force Cold Throw off and grab the last 2. So I spoke too soon. Mites available for Ole Miss.
Oh no. Yeah, so it is going to be 5 apiece for Ole Miss here. A big deal, not just to get, but also to deny away from the Jax, right? This big side lane threat that we out in the draft won't be as threatening.
There's the Nautilus Virus lockdown. Shogo doesn't get to move until he's already far too low. And that Azog goes on a killing spree. Root down for Chucky's great kick from Cold Throw to set his 80 carry up on a mantle. 2 more in the hands of Azog's Varus.
And it's a double kill for the Ember Foxes bot lane. They will take control of this top side. A lot of gold being funneled into this Varus pick. And beautiful recognition there from Chucky, setting up in that bush. They get the jump onto Shogo. He doesn't even have time, or rather probably knew he was dead and didn't want to use the flash or the barrier. He goes down. Like you said, a beautiful kick from Cold Throw to follow. And Ole Miss are lagging behind into this game. The gold lead, not super significant, a little less than 2K in the favor of Ember Foxes, but all of that gold is being funneled exactly where they want it to be.
Yeah, 7 of the 8 kills are on your 2 main damage dealers. How nice of a spot, especially when, if this game goes long enough, even in an even state, you would favor the Ember Foxes comp. It puts even more pressure on the Land Sharks to create and take over this mid game if they want a chance at that 2-0 sweep.
And the late game is going to be made even worse because you could see Cold Throw is on those dragons. So that objective is going to be led by them. Teleport coming in, but there are a lot of Ole Miss members.
Chucky's was here to cover, but he's actually the one that has to flash out. Condemn lands for Shogo. You want to watch more stun lock on a Shogo's head? Revenge is a dish best served cold to Geiger. But it will be traded out by that dragon stacking you talked about.
Yeah. It'll be traded by the dragon stacking and a lot of gold going toward Azog. So while the gold and the plates and the turret is going to go toward Ole Miss on this top side, it was shared by a lot of their members. Meanwhile, this Varus gets all of those plates to himself. So the big carry for Ember Foxes is still cashing out in that exchange. Even if Ole Miss get the kill, they get the turret, and they get a little bit of control over that top side.
They get a little bit closer. Gold lead now down to just mere hundreds. And it was sitting a lot higher for Ember Foxes. Maybe we'll get a good injection back as Azog is going to trade that tier 1 turret out with plates on it as well. So we actually have 2 turrets with full plates, not being enough to stop them from falling.
And all of that gold going to the Varus. Now the bot side of the map in heavy control of Ember Foxes, especially when you can see Chookies and Reppy just trying to shove out these waves, control that side of the map. And it means it's so difficult for Ole Miss, especially around these dragons, to fight back, right? Not only are they facing away from the pit, so they're going to have to go around, but you are also having to full commit. This is a full engage squad from Ole Miss. You go in, you don't go out. You are the ones that are supposed to come out because you kill all of Ember Foxes, but Ember Foxes are more than happy to fight.
Chucky's very happy the dredge line hitbox is what it is because it might just give Azog his 5th kill with the Chains of Corruption and the auto attacks of flow in. Azog's 2-item Varus is absolutely terrifying.
Chookies is on a tear here in game number 2, finding hooks, finding picks on this Nautilus, and really being the bane of Ole Miss's existence. That pick going to net them the Herald. They're probably going to be able to use this in the mid lane so that they can get pressure around the time the dragon spawns. Or hell, maybe they can just use it now. Really, the world is their oyster around this part of the map, and Ole Miss just have to sort of take it at this point in time.
Still have to wait for their opportunity. They do get basically all the members on the first items that are powerful. And we'll see if Ole Miss can play for their strength, which is getting Icelandic Hero on these resets. Asila cooking up some engage. Chucky's not going to get hit by the Zenith Blade, but man, did Asila just go for all of it and whiff the chain. They get the Solar Flare down, but Azog had the cleanse ready. And you could see Ole Miss really starting to try and force things with their deficit growing.
I mean, that's two ultimates committed. Shogo going in to that final hour means he won't be as strong for any of these fights. So I'm wondering if Ember Foxes, once they get Chuki's back on the map, as he's not actually going to channel that reset fully, wondering if maybe this is their time to look for a play. You can see Reppy is off to the side. They have the opportunity to sandwich, but it's Ole Miss first on the trigger.
They really want Azog dead. They're going to get it. Ole Miss pick up the first kill, but now they're still under the turret, and they're letting Reppy start to cook as they find the kill right back on Icelandic. Cold Throw goes in, but does not find the Sonic Wave on the Stray. Connects from distance, and they'll happily take the trade, but Shogo and company are the ones that claim the very high-priced bounty.
Very, very big shutdown in favor of Ole Miss. They finally get the 80 Azog. They get the shutdown, like you mentioned, Slayer, but they're not going to be able to look for any sort of cross-map advantage for it. They have to use the TP from Stray defensively to make sure this tower doesn't fall, and that means TP flanks around this time that the Dragon will spawn aren't going to be possible for the Gnar. Ole Miss, they get the pick. They're managing to find these small little windows, but they've got to find something big if they want to turn this tide.
They're going to have to find it at this next Drake, it feels like.
Yep.
Cannot give a third Dragon a Hextech Soul opportunity in the mid-20-minute mark of this game if you are Ole Miss. Hextech, so powerful, especially on a comp dominated by consistent damage and setup that Ryze and Varus rely so much on.
For sure. And I mean, Varus doesn't have any summoners, so there is an opportunity for Ole Miss to maybe look for something onto Azog again. Second kill going over to Shogo would potentially turn the tide of this game, but for the time being, it's all of the members hovering over toward that top side. Stray just trying to get some damage onto the tower. They want to shove this top wave in and make sure it stays shoved for as long as possible, because they know unless they have Prio in the top side, unless they are able to threaten that side of the map, Ember Foxes have just a free pass to rotate on down here with the Herald now. They're going to use this to force a response from Ole Miss and abandon that top side that they were heavily indexing into.
Stray still chilling up there, shoving waves into Geiger, but Geiger playing the weak side role perfectly, just making sure no turrets fall, catching the waves, not dying, keeping the pressure up. And yeah, like you mentioned, that means that they get a mid-tier 1 turret and that very big win con of Soul Point for free, it feels like. Geiger able to stack up.
Oh, Stray. Oh. Unlucky.
There's a Realm Warp. Where's that going?
They're
flanking Shogo. Shogo flashing over the wall into enemy territory. And now Rhino wants to re-engage. Solar Flare down. Does not find Cold Throw. They drop the Death Charge onto Shogo. Trying to kite back with that final hour. But he's starting to really churn. But he eats the Chains of Corruption in the face. And Azog's going to try and execute him. Shogo lives through it all, though. They get Icelandic, the reset he needs. And here comes Ole Miss. When you think they're down and out, they find ways back in. And they find themselves 3, making a 4th kill. No, it falls flat. Icelandic stunned under the turret. Reppy barely limps away.
Beautiful look coming out there from Ole Miss. All of the members converge on different sides. They go in, they go out. The next member goes in, then goes out. This pattern nets them so many kills. And Geiger wants his revenge.
Flash Grandmaster's might. Shut down claimed by Geiger. And this game delivers like expected from draft. Gold lead even, but it still feels like Ember Fox's game to lose because those dragons are all stacked up for a Hextech Soul.
It certainly does, right? But the big target, the Varus, now very mortal here into this game. It feels like Ole Miss has ways to try and get into Azog's face to shut down that big carry from the Ember Foxes. And now that opens up a lot more avenues for them to play aggressively. We saw it from Rhino in that last exchange. They got engaged on, he went right back in. They got the kills, they got so much gold, and now it's Geiger with no fear looking for the kills.
This is not Ole Miss's jungle. Ember Foxes take control of it slyly, and they're going to claim Rhino as the stool point. The head on a spike, if you call it. And what's spawning right after that? Baron. Are we going to get a 20-minute rip on Baron from Ember Foxes? It looks like it.
Yeah, looks like we are. I mean, LeBlanc does have the teleport, but really no avenue to use it with that control or the wave. I think they're going to have to go for it. They want to try and stop this, but they're in a 4v5 situation for now.
2-item Rise and Vars do a ton of damage. Is Icelandic going to be the hero with the steal? No, will not get it. Strain, Icelandic jump in. Icelandic will fall. No hero today as the fight splits off. Reppy not able to kill off Asila, but they keep the LeBlanc away from him. Now Reppy using the Realm Warp to get Colthrow and company closer. They're going for Rhino. They find the clone of Asila, who still continues to be pesky with that LeBlanc, but Shogo is cut off from the rest of his resources. Geiger zones him away. No kills really found except Icelandic, but the main point, Baron on 5 for Ember Foxes.
Good take coming out there from Colthrow. The Q, Sonic Kick plus the Smite, a lot of damage delivers. He's a very difficult champion to out-smite fight. And yeah, they find it. They don't lose a single member. They get a member of Ole Miss in Icelandic, like you said, Slayer. But all of the waves are in a bit of a precarious spot for the Ember Fox. As you can see with those reset timers, it is giving an opportunity for Asila to push in a mid. Bot lane being pushed by Shogo as well. So they're going to have to spend time making up for lost ground after those resets. And it means that Ole Miss, really their big objective is to just kill a time and make sure that they lose as little with this Baron buff active.
Oh, maybe they have an opening on a Chookies who follows the dredge line, and look at the engage from Rhino. He locks Reppy and Colthrow in place and strays Gnar ultimate. It all lines up with the snap of a finger. Shutdown galore. 3 kills to the Land Sharks.
You blink and you miss it, and Ole Miss gobble up their prey here in game number 2. They don't have the Baron buff. If they've got 5 members strong, they're going to try and push out that mid wave, get the mid turret, open up this map, finally in their favor.
Oh. Azog, though, starting to cook. Geiger close by, but no stuns to follow. Such important that window found to shut down the Baron, and even bigger quacks. Maybe give Ole Miss time to set up control for this next Hextech Drake that they have to have.
This is a necessity for Ole Miss. If they lose this, Ember Foxes, as soon as they get shut down, they're going to get powered right back up here with the Hextech Soul. But Ole Miss now with the Baron buff, or rather not with the Baron buff, but with the sort of confidence buff, there's the word, of winning that fight, of getting those picks. They're all on the map now. Pay attention to that Gnar bar stray. It's going to be a big quintessential piece in this team fight puzzle as teleport is coming in from Geiger.
They're going for Rhino. He's caught out. He's going to have to just try and engage for his team, but he doesn't get any of his ult off. He doesn't get any engage. Man advantage over to Ember Foxes. Ole Miss are going to have to fight back even harder now to try and deny this Hextech Drake that's being started up as we speak.
But Icelandic has found a way around. The members of Ole Miss are split. They could try to converge. I think it's going to come down to a steal, but Ember Foxes don't want that to happen. They want to deny the 50-50.
Oh, here we go, Shogo, trying to show why he's one of the best AD carries in Tier 3. 1 versus 3 on the Vayne, but Reppy roots him. They get the shutdown. The health bars are low, but it doesn't matter. Shogo is down. Geiger will be the trade on one side. Icelandic trying to desperately find himself a reset, and they have to let Asila and Stray cook, stacking up the Gnar bar. Look how low Ember Foxes are across the line. Colthrow goes in for the kick. Stray goes in for the Gnar ultimate, but they don't get to Reppy or Azog, who will happily trade out their counterparts and leave us dead at 2 members even, and nobody sniffing the Drake just yet.
And Asila doesn't finish his back. He's still on the map. He wants to see if he can try and steal this. The dragon has been started, but it's going to be dropped. Ole Miss, at the end of the day, they lose a lot of members, but they get the objective win. Nothing is being taken except the life of Reppy.
Reppy picked the wrong brush to recall in. And Quacks, will that be enough here for Ole Miss to finally grab control of this Drake pit and stall this game out? It feels like it.
I mean, mid laner down, man advantage, flip side from, a minute ago. Now Ole Miss have the 4v5. I think it's Ember Foxes who are going to have to concede this dragon. You can see Geiger on the top lane. They recognize that this would only be the first dragon for Ole Miss, so not the end of the world, but breathing room into the Land Sharks finally at last. 24 minutes in, they get an advantage. They deny Ember Foxes their soul, and they are looking to try and find opportunities to punch back here in game number 2.
This game is on a knife's edge. The dragons are such a factor that are now being limited. Icelandic picks up the Hextech Drake on his own. And now that we can sigh and take a breath away from that big win con for Ember Foxes, the realization here is the gold is dead even. The items are all caught up for Ole Miss. It is going to come down, Quacks, to execution time and time again. Because, boy, do we know these fights aren't slowing down anytime soon.
These fights are bangers, absolute cinema, as Rhino might just be gone.
It's Deja Vu once again, caught 1 versus 4. A fleeting solar flare falls, but it's Rhino to go to the gray screen with Baron 30 seconds out from respawning.
Rhino gonna respawn around the same time, so the kill, a good amount of gold, and it means that Ember Foxes have a little bit more time to establish control over this top side, but when it comes down to it, unless the Baron gets bursted down fast enough, it'll be a 5v5 fight, but it's Ole Miss who want to change those odds.
Reppy realm warps in, trying to cut off Shogo. They're going on top of him. Geiger gets the root. They get the Nature's Wrath down as well. They have Shogo claimed. Ember Foxes find another key pick in the time of destiny.
And Ember Foxes, like you said, get the pick. If Rhino didn't do it, getting Shogo will, getting the Baron might just seal the deal. Stray is on the top side, or rather the bot side, sorry, of the map, just looking to push into that wave. Potentially open up a threat that Ember Foxes have to deal with and stall out that Baron timer. But the spikes are there. Almost 4 items here for Azog. 3 items in a fully stacked Roa for Reppy. It feels like it's do or die time here for Ole Miss. Can they get the team fight win? It's going to come down to potentially one more team fight, or as this game has kind of sung the entire time, potentially one more pick onto the score.
Really been the decider for a lot of these neutrals is who's support.
I got to throw some shade in there, you know?
No, it's valid. I mean, the big Ole Miss fight win was Chucky's dredge line too far. The Dragon start to look good for Ember Foxes was Rhino getting cut down from a Realm Warp flank, and that Baron for Ember Foxes started with Rhino once again falling. So the fights have been the main story, the welterweight or the heavyweight battle, but the welterweights have been these sneaky picks both teams have been able to find, mostly Ember Foxes favored.
And I like the split here from Ember Foxes, but now they're looking to split Ole Miss.
Chucky's, I don't think he thought that dredge line would hit, but he finds Icelandic Hero, who is very low but not dead just yet. Geiger teleports in, Reppy goes for the damage kill, and Asila's damage falls flat. Stray gets a 4-man Gnar ultimate, but it's just not enough because the rest of Ole Miss are cut down and gone. Ember Foxes find themselves in the Game 3 of Destiny they needed with one more killing blow.
And Reppy goes for the reset. He goes for the teleport. 5 members strong, looking to barrel down this bot lane. They want to tie up this series. They want to be the big guys, the big dogs in Zon. And they're looking to fight tooth and nail, claw, spear, and sword to get there.
They've got the wave. They're going to realm warp right on top of the Nexus turret. So
game removed by Reppy.
There's no time wasted. Both Nexus turrets down. Nothing for Icelandic Hero Rhino to do. It's a Game 3. Ember Foxes have done it. They've gotten their revenge from game number 1.
The revenge is there for the Ember Foxes. And also, finally, you know, Slayer, we've been casting a lot of 2-0 sweeps lately. This is kind of a broken curse for us. Finally, we get to a Game 3 series here in the ACL. And what a series it's been. Game 1 was a banger. Game 2 was somehow even more so. I cannot imagine what Game 3 is going to be like.
Can't imagine at all, but gotta talk about the response here from Ember Foxes. And it was torrential right out the gate here. I mean, Azog goes 4-0 on the Varus with Chucky's and Colthrow were really creating opportunities for them. And while it got dicey in that mid game, the carries were just too far ahead. You could see the damage. The damage charts above right now really tell the story. Reppy's Rise and Azog's Varus were just too much for Ole Miss to really find that comeback.
For sure. I mean, Ole Miss, they had the keys to go, and potentially find that comeback, like you say. But it felt like they were constantly getting picks, right? We mentioned this in the draft, the power of the Nautilus, the power of the Rise, all of this CC, all of this lockdown amounted to them getting so many picks, so much free gold, and just being able to propel those leads that had already existed in the early game forward as the game went on, and Ole Miss couldn't make up for it at the end of the day. So it was a valiant effort, but man, a tied up series. Colomer, when I talked to him earlier, he promised me 3 games as well. So Colomer, thank you for delivering. Shout out to you, buddy. Even if it has been a very messy series from both sides, if I do say so myself.
Yep. Game 3 coming your guys' way. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Going to go to another break here, and we'll see where Ole Miss decide to approach the draft with side selection available. But Game 3 draft is a reality. It's been a while, Quacks. We've had 4 straight sweeps. Not the case today on this Friday night with 2 amazing teams competing. Final draft of the night between Ole Miss and Ember Foxes coming y'all's way after another short break. One final game to determine our heavyweight match in Zon. The second and third top seeded team in the group. Ole Miss versus Ember Foxes. We have had somewhat close games, Quacks, but clear definitive ends with Ole Miss in control from game 1's point and Ember Foxes really taking control from game 2 after finding a couple of opening picks. So it really feels like game 3, like I don't see a very clear favorite for this game 3. It's not like we had any like gotcha games. This has been a battle the entire time through.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of, and I think what makes game 3 exciting is context of Fearless is that, especially with this series, we have seen a lot of unorthodox picks, right? We've seen the Rise, we've seen the Vayne, we've seen the Draven, which means that there is still a lot of, sort of A tier, S tier champions available for both of these squads to pick up in this all important game 3. And I would expect all the stops to be pulled out here for this final game. So I'm wondering just exactly which teams are going to be playing what. It is Ole Miss yet again on the blue side, Ember Foxes on the red. So credit where credit is due. They make things really easy for us in terms of side selection. We don't have to reorder around any graphics at all. So that must be nice for you, Slayer, having to double as prod and caster, which of course I appreciate. But at the same time, I am interested to see what Ole Miss are cooking up here for game 3, especially in the context of Shogo, right? He has been playing, like we said, the Draven, the Vayne. There's still a lot of meta 80 carries around and available, right? The Zeri, the Jinx, these big hyper carries that he's known for have yet to be revealed. So I'm wondering if maybe we're going to get those, or maybe we're going to get those aggressive picks, right? Maybe something like the Callista is going to come out. That's been kind of banned all series long as well, but would be very in line with the style Shogo has cultivated so far.
Certainly, and it's interesting bringing up that point, right, and addressing the same thing we've been talking about all night, which is like this is a different Ole Miss. You can see it in the draft somewhat, right? I think Ole Miss having 3 blue side games 6 months ago, maybe even not that long ago, like 4 months ago, you would have expected
something like that.
So you expected B1s for Shogo, right? Picking in his position, but the last 2 drafts, as we do, throw it over to our final draft of the night, they've B1'd Stray's Yone. The Yone could have gone either lane, to be honest with you. And then it's got a Sela on the LeBlanc. So do they try and switch up that and go back to what's tried and true? Picking for Shogo, not putting him in a tough spot with, eliminated carry picks. I didn't even get the point out because Ole Miss were so confident. Orianna was left up. They want the Orianna in the hands of a Sela.
So I'm wondering if Ember Foxes are going to try and deny some of those good jungle Orianna, the Nocturne screams, as much as I hate it, the Jarvan screams as well. Skarner is not available as well, right? So that isn't on the table. They're actually going to just straight up counterpick with the Ahri here. This is actually a pretty good matchup into Ahri. I've found that it is much more favorable for her than the Orianna, especially as the game goes on. It feels very difficult for Orianna to play, and they're not going to deny any ball delivery systems today. They are going for the man that wants his cigar. The Graves is being cultivated here for Colthrow in game number 3. So I love this. I'm interested to see what Ole Miss are going to pick up, if they're going to stick more toward, pairing up with the Orianna, or something that can be in the face, a straight up counter toward the Graves, because I don't see a lot of overlap with either of those things. Maybe the Vi is an option. I think that would be really good, especially against a champion like Ahri. But barring something like that, I think we're just going to see the jungle picked here, and it is going to be the Vi. So I really like this pairing, and it really does counter these picks that Ember Foxes have grabbed up so far.
It's funny seeing Vi with Orianna when she is so much more often paired up with Ahri versus an Ahri. That's a funny little interaction. Yeah. We have seen a lot of Graves players really pop off, and by a lot of, I just mean music. At least on our front. Music played a Graves game, looked fantastic on it. Interesting conversation to have when we continue to talk about, champion pools, champion picks in this series with 3 games coming. Colthrow game 1, Skarner, full facilitation. Colthrow game 2, Lee Sin, but mostly the facilitator Lee Sin. He didn't get really fed to do a ton of damage. Now he's just fully indexed onto damage. First game we're going to see Colthrow trying to play the main damage dealer, and Icelandic Hero doing the flip side, playing the more facilitator-oriented Vi after Brand and Viego games.
And a very dive-heavy comp being picked up here by Ole Miss, but a decent amount of disengage up there for Ember Foxes as well. I really like the Xayah pick. I'm wondering if maybe we're going to see an Ole Miss, Ole Miss trying to ban away that Renata. I think Renata would be a really good pickup here for Ember Foxes that they want to try and deny. Just trying to make sure that you take all of those good disengage, anti-dive, anti-engage support champions like the Rakan away. One of the big anti-engage supports that is actually not available is the Braum, so you don't have to waste your ban on that so far. I don't know. I really like a Renata angle here for the side of Ember Foxes. I think it is very solid, especially with Ole Miss most likely going to just keep trying to push those dive champions. I can see the Renekton maybe being a little bit good, something like a Camille if you want some side lane threat. I think really again, with game 3, all of these sort of unorthodox champions being picked in game 1 and 2, there's so many options for both of these squads still to come up as we do finish the bans. Ember Foxes, please let me get the gotcha prediction and pick up that Renata, because I think it's perfect. Or Alistar. That works too.
Yeah, true. Alistar, interesting it didn't get banned. I was going to point that one out. I also think it's interesting Ember Foxes banned the Maokai. I feel like Maokai's like a sneaky good disengaged champion if you really need him in a pinch and support, but the Alistar left up. The Alistar is what you're going to get here from Chookies. Alistar, Xayah used to be a pairing that was like top of the meta.
Yes.
Kind of feels like a while ago. Yeah, but still viable as a duo, even if their positions in the meta rankings aren't the same as they used to be.
Yeah. And now it's Ole Miss going to likely pick up a support for themselves, or they just straight up show the top laner. I have to imagine they want to go with Engage. Camille might be good as well. Actually going to go for a Galio support.
Yep.
That was not on my bingo card. Okay. There is the Camille. Yeah, I like this. Good side lane threat, good lockdown, good pairing with the Galio as well as the Vi. They say screw you to one target, and I would imagine that target is going to be the Ahri, the Graves, the Xayah, one of the 3, but it doesn't matter because they're all going to die.
Yeah, they're certainly. This is they switched off the Camille. All right, Renekton still. Renekton, I mean, it's still the same, right? It still works. This is, what? This is apt, as I'm officially dubbing October 18th the Galio Day after Worlds. So
we love Galio.
So we get a
love
Galio.
This champ.
We get a Galio in our own game, Quacks. After well, it's not gonna be able to top the Galio from Worlds, but like you're talking about, could be absolute artwork on Summoner's Rift if you get the Galio, the Vi, the Orianna Ball, and Kai'Sa just all slamming into each other.
And the Urgot going to finish us off here for the game 3 draft. This is giving shades of like Hanwha Life versus FlyQuest game number 1. This is exactly the kind of style we saw from those teams where we have Ole Miss heavy engage, but Ember Foxes picking up so many good anti-dive champions, anti-engage champions. The Fear Beyond Death, the Xayah Ultimate, the Featherstorm, so good at denying these key points that Ole Miss want to play for in a lot of these fights. So I love both of these drafts, honestly. I think it could be anyone's game at the end of the day, and those are the kinds of game 3s we like, where we say, yes, 2 thumbs up to both drafts, and it just comes down to execution. It just comes down to pure, raw brain and pure, raw hands mechanics. So what an exciting game 3 for both of these squads, and a lot of weight on this series. We cannot stress this enough. Zaun, the top of the table, is up for grabs for both of these squads. They have impressive rosters, and they need impressive results to back up with it.
Quacks, that was such a good wrap up. I don't like throwing a break early, but I don't think there's much more I need to say. I mean, I think you guys just painted the picture. The only last thing I'd say is when you're talking execution, you've got needs a burst win in a team fight. They have to blow everybody up. And then this side, if you make a fight even a bit too long, Graves and Xayah and Urgot will ruin you. So
for sure,
just want to elevate, support your point, as I am the supportive champion in drafts as the play-by-play. But Quacks told you guys purely how we're sitting here. We love both drafts. There's no draft edge. It's all hands and it's all brains coming down for game 3 to decide who is really going to be potentially the clear number 2 in Zaun for most of the regular season. And we'll get to see all that action play out for a final time on Summoner's Rift after another short break. We'll see you guys for game number 3, Ole Miss Ember Foxes, in just a bit. A climactic end is in order for our Week 4 showcase matchup on the Salt Mine Podcast. Official B stream. Ole Miss, Ember Foxes, one of the two of these squads, is going to establish themselves as one of the true competitors to challenge potentially Pulsing Gooners and beyond. And we're already getting some hijinks as all of Ole Miss perused up to the top lane to see if they can catch Geiger out, but he spots them out aptly and gives up the entire bot side jungle to Ember Foxes while doing so.
And it's information for Ole Miss on this top side, but it is also information for Colthrow and Graves, one of those champions that's particularly really good at dodging around vision, right? Being able to kind of avoid those wards, avoid some of those sweet spots could be valuable for Colthrow if he's looking to get aggressive on the map early on. And I would imagine probably wants to do so. He's got a lot of setup in a lot of these lanes. So I think the Graves' ability to get going early on is at an all-time high with the draft he has around him.
All-time high indeed. We're about to get a new time early game, it feels like, is these lane assignments are getting wackier and wackier by the minute. They're trying to steal away the red, but Geiger face checks it into 3 members. I don't think he was expecting Stray and Ice Landing maybe to be so nearby, and he'll have to expend the flash, ignite from Rhino out, but the goal's still going to be accomplished for Ole Miss. Stealing away that red buff.
That's a bad phase for Geiger. Not only does he burn the flash, TP back to the lane. That's both summoners off of the Urgot immediately out of the gate. And Rhino, he's in the mid lane for the time being, but I think a dive might be possible. Yeah, you can see Geiger not even trying to chance it up toward that top side. Gonna go bot lane, gonna meet up with Azog and just deny any further advantages toward Ole Miss for the time being. And it's looking like we might have a bit of a vertical jungle game coming through. You can see Graves is on that bot side, Vi is on that top side, and I think it's going to be both teams just trying to absorb as much gold as they possibly can before something returns to a little bit of normality.
Yeah, so this is just such a fascinating early game to try and dissect because there's some people in this game that are super happy and there's some that are just completely confused. Like Geiger, I don't know what this Urgot's gonna be able to do. Obviously, both top laners are without CS. Maybe now Stray will be able to find some as the teleports come across. But if you're Colthrow, even if it's a vertical jungle, you gotta like just being able not having to worry about Vi impacting your lanes early on, having to clear slower, and you just get to full clear up like you always wanted to. As I think we might have lost Quacks. I don't know if we lost Quacks. Quacks can still hear me. But regardless, these wacky lane assignments still continuing. As okay. It looks like we're being plagued by actually being plagued by Discord is all right. Well, technical difficulties, folks. We're going to have to deal with only me for this early game, so hopefully nothing too crazy pops off by this point. Still seems like lanes are starting to sort of settle. We still see Shogo and Rhino matched up against Geiger, which is really handicapping this Urgot's ability to kind of scale back up. Nonetheless, we do see Stray also in his own 1 versus 2. Chookies and Azog setting up a pretty good freeze. So these lanes are just sort of stalling out with no end in sight, just like Discord's 5,000 ping bug. If anyone was curious what's going on, I hope that's not happening on the mainstream.
Okay.
With the fact,
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are we fixed?
I am Barack.
All right.
I think
we're all good. If you can hear me, and I can hear you.
I can hear you.
All right. Well, luckily, Quacks, nothing crazy happened. I just babbled on. So it's your turn now.
Yeah.
Unless this dive happens, actually, Quacks, I'm gonna stop you.
Back to you.
Back to me, indeed. A Stray. 4 versus 1, but unlike most 4 versus 1 dives, he is level 4, but he gets knocked up. Flashes to create some distance, but doesn't get the Kolomik off for the heal. The Sela will teleport in, but there's nobody low enough to really capitalize on a trade kill.
A little bit of a drive-by there from Chuki's beautifully executed dive. Stray also committing the flash means that this Renekton's ability to make some of those more aggressive plays, you know, go for like the flash W, or when he gets the Dominus, go for that, added on to the ward, the combo, not going to be possible. And around the time of the Dragon means that Ember Fox is going to be in control of this bot side for the time being. So yeah, I like what I'm seeing so far from Ember Foxes. Again, it's really going to come down to those big team fights, but if they can set up these carries to have a gold lead before then, have a decent advantage in neutrals as well, then they'll be sitting really, really good. And speaking of neutrals, the Grubs are up, and a lot of members from Ember Foxes are on this top side.
Yeah, we haven't had a single normal lane assignment. As you can see, it's Stray versus Reppy, so a ton of members being up here makes sense. Rhino gets thrown into all of Ember Fox to get double taunt off. Cold throw flashes over the wall, so no Vault Breaker stun comes across. Chuki's very low, able to kite back safely as Reppy utilizing the Spirit Rush to try and cut down the angle, or maybe just keep himself safe. He gets the charm off, but he's out of mana, so no more kill threat, and everybody walks away.
And some trading on the bot lane as well. Orianna almost managing to get that solo kill. Asila bullying out Geiger, who may or may not be forced to reset here. And neither of these teams want to give up the Grubs. This has been the hotly contested objective of this series. And in a game 3 where, you know, one little misstep could decide the trajectory, really feels like they are not willing to budge an inch over this top side.
No, not at all. It's Icelandic Hero to start up the Grubs. We'll see how many he actually wants to take. Cold Throw is nearby, starting up his red buff. Will be alerted to this take now with the first Grub falling. But not really looking to step up yet, just farming up his red buff. And the outcome I did think was going to happen with everything going on in the last minute or so. Just 3 Grubs taken for Icelandic with no real trade coming.
Kind of the first time this series, right? Because normally we've seen when a Herald or a Grub is taken, almost always the other jungler, unless they're fighting it, is going for the opposite objective. And now with so many plays being made on the top side, it feels like what more could one more do? As Chuki's is in the area, Stray does have that Dominus though, so this is a very angry Croc that is ready to defend himself at a moment's notice.
I just love how the supports levels are so starkly different. It's level 3 Chuki's and level 4 Rhino, who will land the taunt. We'll throw here as well, and maybe they just bait Rhino into his own demise.
They separated him from Stray.
Yeah, and he has to flash away, so that means Stray wants to go in versus Azog. Both drop their ultimates. Featherstorm pull back, not enough damage. Rhino retreats back towards the turret, so basically metaphorically summed up their Quacks. Everyone just puffs their chests, and nobody actually commits.
Stray, I like the aggression, though. Realized that he was about to get collapsed on, so he ults. Doesn't necessarily get the kill onto Azog, but I have to imagine that wasn't his primary objective. He wants to clear the wave, wants to make sure that the dive angle for the Ember Foxes is completely thwarted, and that did the job. Nobody dies at the end of the day, the only casualty being that dragon over to Ole Miss on the bot side.
And Rhino's flash, but...
And that, yeah, I suppose. A bit of a eulogy for that one. We pour one out.
We pour one out, indeed. Maybe we'll see why you wanted that flash, Rhino, is they're just going to flash on top of him and engage, and Caster Curse is a hell of a drug, folks. Geiger capitalized on Rhino being flashless.
And I love that they actually got the kill onto Geiger. We don't often talk about the importance of getting your top laner ahead, but in a game like this where Urgot, you know, sort of that anti-dive machine is pivotal. You want to make sure that that fear beyond death, that the damage those shotgun knees do is maximized to as much as you can get it to. So I like where they're putting the kills. I like where the gold is going to for Ember Foxes. And I just love how they're punishing Rhino, right? Didn't have the flash, like you mentioned, Slayer, and just immediately pull the trigger. No hesitation on their faces.
Yep, so shades of game 1. Ember Foxes opened with the first 2 kills, but the gold was actually close because of the other, you know, supportive ways you can grab gold, or more incognito ways. Rhino, once again, casualty of a headbutt pulverized combination from Chuki's, and there's just more members of Ember Foxes here first, and that forces Ole Miss to bide out of the fight. Shogo Keeley having to burn his flash there at the Might of Reppy.
I mean, Rhino going colorblind here in game number 3 as he's trying to make sure they can get onto Azog.
Yeah, holds his Featherstorm, though, to allow the rest of his teammates to come up. And roots Icelandic expertly. Great bait and catch there coming across from Azog, and they might get more because Shogo, remember, is flashless. Yeah, sure, you have the barrier, but you're 1 versus 4, my friend. 5-0 opening for Ember Foxes, looking to shock the Zonian group.
And a lot of credit given over to Chucky's 100% kill participation along with Azog, but thwarting every single play that Ole Miss want to make and taking every single play that he can get on this Alistar, being so pivotal in so many moments so far. And we're only 10.5 minutes in, but it has netted so much gold already. 2K in favor of the Ember Foxes. The Grubs likely next on the menu. You can see 2 members here for Ember Foxes in the mid lane, trying to get Prio here. Stray.
Oh, Stray! Too much damage. They blow up Reppy. Chookies again. Another headbutt pulverized combo backwards to send Stray far away. The Fear Beyond Death does land. If they get him low enough, it's going to execute him and bring him back towards Geiger, who will make sure it's at least a trade.
Geiger going with his best Scorpion cosplay. Get over here! He reels him into his death, and now Rhino getting aggressed onto.
Oh, Chookies pops the Unbreakable Will, taunt down from Rhino. Collateral damage from Cold Throw, just trying to zone off. Deter Ole Miss from a further fight, and that's exactly what it accomplishes.
Yep. And Stray, his death timer now expired, has the reset, has the gold spent, has the teleport back up toward the map. And Ole Miss are 5 members again. Ember Foxes, they have to be careful. Their health bars are pretty low.
Oh, but Rhinos is about to get deleted as he goes in and is caught. Another great engagement from Chookies. He throws Icelandic to the Wolves. It's a Chookies masterclass, and Ember Foxes are mopping up every ounce of gold they can get off of it.
He's not throwing them to the Wolves. He's throwing them to the Foxes as they feast on the corpse of Galio for a 3rd time. Chookies continues to find these angles, continues to find these picks, and it's netting even more advantages over to the Ember Foxes. They will equalize the grub count. And now they will push up toward the top side of the map. They'll also get some resets. Dragon, a little less than a minute away from spawning. But with how strong they are, Colthrow having his first item, Azog having his first as well, it feels like they should be able to just march into this pit and take the fight to Ole Miss.
We'll caution viewers and Ember Foxes, this lead is not as big as you would think with the kill count. It's because Shogo has been farming like a demon, up, nearly over a kill's worth of gold.
10 CS, over 10 CS.
Yep, over 10 CS, up 40 over Azog. And then topside, Stray is actually a lot more competitive with Geiger for a very similar reason, and that's why it is still just a measly 1.6k. Well, I don't even want to call it measly because that is impactful, but once again, not indicative compared to how bloody it has been in favor of Ember Foxes.
And I like the position here from Stray. He wants to try and take the fight to Geiger, but he has to be careful of the Fear Beyond Death.
Yeah, Geiger just going to retreat towards his turret and going to be happy that he doesn't have to worry about a Dominus engage for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah. Neither top laner has the teleport available, right? The Dragon next on the menu, but it's going to be a 4v4 at most!
Wow, what a timing on that Spear Rush dash. Reppy dodges the shockwave, but the cease and desist makes sure that Reppy will fall. Icelandic going to trade his life here with that key dragon up, and maybe a Seela now too far forward. It's Chookies again with the Alisec to throw a key member of Ole Miss into his squad for a free kill. 2-1 once more in the favor of Ember Foxes.
Chuki's going with the alley-oop to continue that exchange. 2-1, like you said, Slayer. Ember Fox is going to march up toward the mid lane. They're going to maybe look for a kill onto Shogo before pivoting onto that dragon. Shogo has to run. Ignite popped.
And Chuki's get close over engage the smoke screen with enough of a slow, but Cold Throw is going to let Shogo go in favor of making sure that mid-tier 1 doesn't fall.
I like the split here from Ember Foxes. They're going onto the neutrals, but they don't want to give anything over to Ole Miss. Geiger is in the top lane, making sure Stray can't get this tower. And it's the same thing for Colthrow in the mid lane.
Oh, wow. This is aggressive, but Geiger expertly flashes away from the knockup. Shogo comes in as well to coloring stick. They want Geiger's head on a pike, and they're going to get it. Reppy's teleporting through. There's no shockwave for a seal to cancel it, but it'll take his health bar low enough to gift Shogo a kill with a bow wrapped. First turret, 2 kills. Here comes Ole Miss.
Reppy with the accidental TP gets taken down, and like you said, 2 kills, a turret. The whole top side now belongs to Ole Miss. You can see they're seeping through the jungle, getting vision, bullying out any members of Ember Foxes that dare tread on what is now considered to be their land. Azog will be able to pad the bleeding for the time being, getting that tower in the bot lane, but it's Ole Miss managing to strike back.
Maybe picking up a divisive turret here. Don't tell LS, but that mid-tier 1 going down is actually going to really open the map up here for Ole Miss to play for.
We're never going to drop that, by the way.
No,
like, I brought that up a couple series ago, and you bring it up now. We are never going to not bring that up. It feels like it might as well be a staple on the Salt Line. We need consistent jokes, right? Like, for the people that tune in.
I think we're starting to build some. The LS joke. I'm definitely going to carry on the Demacia joke if we ever see Garen's come back out. So.
And like every other broadcast, we also have the caster curse going for us.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Of course we do. We'll
it's
see if
built
it pops
into
back
our
up.
DNA unwillingly.
Unwillingly built into our vocal cords. That's the life that we live. Rift Herald taken by Icelandic Hero. Another reason why that mid-tier 1 turret going down was pretty impactful. We'll see if they use that to try and knock down maybe the last outer turret. The one area Ole Miss have seemingly found a pretty big wins here is in the turret department.
Yeah. And it also seems like they're good at defending their own towers, right? Because you can see Ember Foxes are trying to loop around and get some sort of advantage, maybe even a dive onto Asila, but good cover from Rhino, good cover from Shogo as well means that that play gets thwarted, and Ember Fox is going to have to go back mid, catch these waves, and it feels like a relatively quiet game for the time being. Ember Fox is wanting to get that top lane tower really open up the map, but these tier 1s are being so well defended by Ole Miss that it's kind of just a stalemate for now.
Yeah, and the team that we expect to try and play slower in fights is now running around as a 5-man escapade, looking for any fight they can get because they feel like they're stronger at this point. The gold lead and the, honestly, items in some departments disagrees with that statement.
I certainly think the items later on in the game going to favor Ember Foxes, right? Because you always have to look at that Graves as an item-dependent champion, right? Once he gets those 3-4 items mixed with the Xayah as well, who already has 2 items, you're dealing with a double marksman comp, right? That is the epitome of late game damage. And with how well Chukis has been playing, sort of defense and how good Urgot is from deterring any of those sort of aggressive plays, I find it very difficult for Ole Miss to play out this late game. So before that happens, they've got to go aggressive. I like what they're doing here. They're owning that bot side of the map, making sure that anybody that enters will be punished. And it might just be Reppy. Hand the camera over. And yeah, he is walking in to potentially a trap, but it's sprung too early. Ole Miss just wanting to get this turret.
Now, a lot of power to teams that are able to knock down the first 3 tier 1 turrets.
Whoa.
They don't even have to use
That's
the
a
Shelly
thing?
charge. Yeah, I guess they just cancel it by jumping on in. Crash comes into the tier 2 turret, but Chukis is waiting. Does not get his alley sec this time. Gets interrupted, but it's still isolated. Has to flash out. 3-man shockwave from Asila, but the damage just isn't there yet on that 1 item Orianna. So maybe just some foreshadowing from the Ole Miss mid laner.
And the members of Ember Foxes, I mean, it's a shockwave. It deters them from going any further, but they've got to go for the reset. They're not at full HP anymore. So many members were taken to about half. And going into this dragon fight, you have got to make sure your health bars are healthy. So this gives a time for Ole Miss to maybe own that side of the map. They're also going for the reset. So it's ultimates burned. It's summoners used. But both teams now on even footing looking to go for this dragon.
Interesting how much stock is put into this third dragon this game, where both teams were able to grab the first one apiece. But Quacks, the future teller, not fortune teller, was correct. Everybody stacked up towards this bot side river, which is currently home to the Ember Foxes. But Ole Miss are trying to set up flanks. They've got wave shoving. Maybe they just give this dragon. I feel like this is a way better decision given the split of dragons early.
It's only second dragon, and I love what they're doing as an alternative. They're pushing out the mid lane. They're pushing out the top lane. They're getting
Icelandic?
other avenues as Good attempt from Icelandic, but he might get punished for it.
Yeah,
Reppy might have taken that one personally.
He now goes back in with the season assist over the wall again into
Oh
Colthrow. Icelandic hero is playing zigzag with the walls, but Colthrow will kill him off to go on a rampage. More than enough damage with the collector. Top tier lane, tier 2 turn, the top lane does go down as fighting continues in the mid lane with Rhino having to burn the flash. Ignite looming over his head, Colthrow looming over all of the land sharks, trying to set up a flank, but they'll get their 4 stack together. Still trying to play out of this enemy jungle that Ember Foxes won't let them out of unless they recall, because EF want this mid-tier 1 turret, which they'll finally claim.
And really good map play coming out there from the Ember Foxes. They get the kill onto Icelandic. They try to threaten a flank angle, but by extension, they push Ole Miss out of the mid lane and own it themselves, meaning they can take the mid lane tier 1. They can open up this map even more for themselves, especially around that bot side, where these dragons just got a whole lot more important, because now it's Ember Foxes with 2 apiece owning those neutral objectives.
And I am terrified of Colthrow. This Graves' damage is only going to get worse. And it's already, I mean, you saw how quickly he burned through Icelandic. I know, not a tank, but
yeah.
Woo-wee.
And tanks, squishies, Colthrow on the Graves, he's not going to discriminate. He's going to blast their heads off all the same, especially once he gets that 3rd item, which I imagine would probably be the LDR. You could also make a case for it having the grievous wounds and maybe trying to get that heal cut, but I think LDR has a bit more value in this game, so I'm interested to see where he goes with that one. It is actually going to be the LDR. Yeah, he got the Noon Quiver.
Or, does Shieldbow still build Noon Quiver?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just taking a shot as the play-by-play to try and sound smart. It's definitely the LDR.
You know, I think it's worse as the color caster that I don't know that, because by extension I should know that. Right?
To be fair to you, you are a jungle player. How many champions do you even play that build?
That is true, but I'm also a Graves player. So what's worse?
Oh, okay. Well, hey, you're gonna be right with the LDR, so it's all gonna be okay. This Death Brush.
That is true.
It's not going to be okay for Ember Foxes. They're targeting Colthrow. Here's the combo they want. Strays in the backline. Beautiful charm from Reppy, though. Is going to hold Stray in his place, and now they turn to their secondary target, which is going to be the Xayah on a platter for Azog. Old Miss get all 5 members on top of Ember Foxes and make magic happen, knocking down Azog. And now they might try and thread for that Baron, but Ember Foxes are looming.
Really good collapse there from Ole Miss. Azog having to use that Feather Storm too early. They get the pick. They make the difference in numbers advantage coming in for Ole Miss. Colthrow having to use that flash, having to use that ultimate. The only way is through.
It's the Shogo ball delivery system. He dashes forward with Asila casting the shockwave. Ole Miss are inventing new ways to win fights live on air.
And we were talking about the Galio delivery system, the Vi delivery system, but would you believe Shogo, the captain of Ole Miss, the god 80 carry player of Tier 3, makes magic happen with his new mid laner. They claim the Baron, and just like that, they have switched this Game 3 around in their favor.
Welcome all Aegis Esports viewers from the mainstream. You have joined into a classic. It was all Ember Foxes. Just to wrap it up to keep everybody tuned in here, you can see the score is 1-1. Game 3, Ember Foxes raced out to an 8-0 kill lead. And ever since then, it's been Ole Miss. Well, they were chipping away at first, but now, like Quax eloquently put, they broke it open. 3.5K gold lead in the hands of Ole Miss, and a lot to play for.
And this Nashor going to be so good at denying any further advantages that Ember Foxes can get. You can see the push in mid lane. They're going to claim this tower. They can't do anything to defend it. They can just pivot on down toward this dragon whenever they want. But they honestly might just keep the pressure up. They've got not only the pressure in mid, but the pressure in bot. As you can see, they're in no rush to go for this objective because they know with this buff, with the Fed Kaisa, with all of these advantages going their way, the game can be played at their pace.
And their pace is knocking down every turret outside of the Ember Fox's base. Mission accomplished. Ton more gold brought into these carries by doing so. Basically guaranteeing a pretty successful Baron take as well. They're going to try and threaten some of these inhibitors with the 4-1 split, but they realistically can comfortably back up and take themselves that 4th Drake of the game.
Ember Foxes also have decent wave clear, one of the many advantages of picking up that Xayah. So they will deter the base being broken open for now, which means that Ole Miss might just have to default back to the Dragon, but Ember Foxes don't want that.
Oh, Shockwave only finds Shooky. Stray is far too low. Will turn and pop the dominance, but Fear Beyond Death claims him. Execution thrush point met. Baron take stalled by Ember Foxes, and they're now looking to punish Shogo on the side here. Expertly uses the minion wave to make sure he doesn't get charged up there.
And they expended a lot into Stray, so they might not have anything left in the tank. Shooky sure as hell doesn't, as Shogo equalizes the kill count for the time being, 1 apiece. And Ole Miss, just like that, they turn it around, and they're just going to go straight onto the Dragon. The Kaisa going to 1v1 it.
Yeah, 1v1. The Shogo wins. Good to take the Dragon when it's on the Rift, but I'm going to be honest, don't think we're going to get a Dragon Mountain Soul in this game. We are going to get another cease and desist down from Icelandic Hero with Asila. Do they have enough damage to burn through Colthrow's health bar? Getting very low. Flash committed, but it should be found with one more Vault Breaker. And here comes Rhino. Asila flashing to guarantee another kill onto Reppy, and all of a sudden Geiger is in a 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4 that he absolutely did not want.
Oh, and Shogo just there to join up with his team, but now more picks!
Azog face checks a brush that's going to get him killed as well. 4 kills for Ole Miss with no answer from Ember Foxes.
And Rhino getting poached so much in the early game, but you made him mad. A charging Rhino goes on through and absolutely obliterates the members of the Ember Foxes. It's an ace for Ole Miss. They will take the inhibitor to boot. And this game, in the blink of an eye, turned around for the Land Sharks.
Got themselves an 8,000 gold lead. 3 items on Shogo and Asila. A very powerful Renekton. And not a lot of answers for Ember Foxes. Though this is still the comp that, as this game ages, they age like fine wine.
Yep. They are still the anti-engage comp at the end of the day. The game is not over. Ole Miss, we saw it there. Stray tried to go for some form of engage back on after the flash from Geiger, and he just got stopped in his tracks, right? The CC, the anti-engage tools that Shooky has, that Geiger has, the Fear Beyond Death, managing to secure that kill. So Ember Foxes, like you said, Slayer, they still have an opening into this game, but they're the ones that have to pull the trigger. They're the ones that have to find the picks, but their comp is only really the best at getting engaged onto. And it feels like for these past 5 minutes, Ole Miss's engages have been everything in the realm of successful.
Anything but that as the game begins to sort of stall out. No real big buffs to play for. Not going to be an Elder looming around anytime soon. And we talked about from the draft how we're both a fan of both these comps. Execution becomes the real decider now. Macro and patience, it feels like, is what's really going to determine these next couple of minutes.
Patience is the name of the game, right? It is the killer of so many teams. And Stray patiently waiting in the bush, but is going to receive that gold with gratitude. And really not a lot of action on the top side this entire series. We've had solo kills here and there, exchanges here and there, dives here and there, but really Stray has been the rock of this series so far. Even when Icelandic and Asila and Shogo have popped off, had their moments, it always feels like the top laner for Ole Miss, one of their biggest centerpieces that often goes on sort of untalked about, overlooked, is always there, ready to spar, ready to brawl, and literally ready to do whatever the team throws at him. This is the yes man of Ole Miss, if ever I've seen one.
Certainly. Baron, a reality about 50 seconds away, but both top laners are going at it. Geiger drops Fear Beyond Death. Reppy is here. Can they get Stray Lona before the ultimate ticks away?
God, no,
they can't. It expired. Stray will not get the big Cole the Meek heal. They have their pick, but what does the response look like from Ole Miss? They're taking over the top side. Asila trying to cut down the angle onto Colthrow. Gets the shockwave to interrupt the collateral damage. The cease and desist. It's enough to lock down and execute Colthrow. Jungler for top laner, but Baron is on the Rift.
And good response coming out there from Ole Miss. They realized they had the numbers advantage. And just when you thought the game couldn't get any more hype, all of that gets killed because we're in a pause, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, locked into a pause here.
What a game it's been in.
Yeah.
And, you know, Slayer, you were right. It is actually the Immortal Shield Bow.
Immortal. Hey! Play-by-play points. All right, we're going to go back to the caster desk. That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I could do Quax's job. No, I'm kidding. I could never do Quax's job.
No, you're good. But, I mean, honestly, a good pickup at the end of the day, because we just saw there, look at how much engage power comes from Ole Miss, right? You might need that defensive shield one day, but it kind of feels like this is an example of when you get your cool new sort of Christmas toy, and then right after something happens to your house that destroys the toy. Like, he's going to have the shield bow, and sure, it'll be useful, but I feel like beyond one more team fight that goes Ole Miss's way, he's not going to be able to test out the usefulness of this item too much, because it might be too little too late, is what I'm trying to say, for this Graves building that defensive item. I feel like if I'm Cold Throw, I've got to go gung-ho. I've got to build all the damage I can, and I've got to fight and go through the adversity. I feel like you can no longer turtle if you are the Ember Fox.
No, they certainly have to try and put this Graves in a spot to succeed. Maybe this Xayah as well, you know, those big scaling threats. But I've gotten word, Quax, that we are back onto the Rift. I believe so, at least. I saw...
Kind of.
Is this like the delay? Listen, Quax pointed out, I'm not a producer by trade, so I don't spectate a ton of games where this happens. But okay,
there we
back.
go.
And here comes the Baron take that we were expecting before the pause came through.
Yep. And it looks like it is going to be all in the favor of Ole Miss. You can see the teleports coming through. Ember Fox is looking for one last play, trying to turn this game back around in their favor.
And they'll get the buff. 5 members sporting the purple banner, is what a time for the Riot. The Riot freeze coming out.
There we
me.
go.
All right, okay. Because it looks like Ole Miss want to chase a bunch of Ember Foxes for trying to potentially contest, but Icelandic Hero will not pull the trigger, and Colthrow will rejoin his teammates onto the Rift. But I want to point out how long it took Colthrow to get back. Death timers are just that long, so one fight could really decide this game.
One fight, one pick. There is a lot of tools on Ember Foxes to be able to single out a member, but so are there on Ole Miss. Reppy obliterated.
Is that enough for Ole Miss to just take anything they want? Top lane inhibitor is a given by this point. They don't have a wave in the bot side, but they're not seeming to leave the Ember Fox's base anytime soon. Do the Land Sharks look for the killing blow? Do they smell blood in the water? That is Dominus popped from Stray, bringing another wave up. They're trying to let Show get close to knocking these turrets down. Rhino does not find a taunt. Shockwave only finds Chookies. Tons of ults being expired, but the Nexus turrets are the ones to expire first. One down. Hero's Interest coming on top of Icelandic Hero as he does fall to the Fear Beyond Death. Shogo still up and strong. Rep Stray gonna go in. They're trying to get to Geiger, but Geiger marks Asila, goes golden. Shogo is untouched, and with no Nexus turrets, the Nexus is now exposed. Reppy jumps in as he is now respawned. Cold Throw far too low. Is it gonna be Ole Miss just focusing the Nexus? It's Shogo who looks to end the series all on his goddamn own, and it's 2-1 Land Sharks. They find the win.
What a turbulent game 3, but such a deserved result for Ole Miss. Ember Foxes playing their hand perfectly at the early game, but on the final stretch, they round the corner and a fist with a shark's head on it goes to greet them. Ole Miss punch back in the late game, and they completely turn this game, this series, and our expectations around.
Without a doubt. Man, what a series. What a day for the ACL. I popped in on the mainstream, the ISU Pulse series. I don't even know how it ended, but that series was down to the wire, and this one was literally, you know, you kill Shogo, maybe Ember Foxes keep this game alive. There's so many questions, but the prevailing thought, Ole Miss, it was turbulent, but they are still yet to lose a series in the ACL.
Yep. Ole Miss looking to be on top of the Zon division. They're eyeing Pulsing Gooners from across the rock. It's like that one scene from Spider-Man 3 where it's the guy looking and then he disappears after the truck sort of passes. That's the kind of look I think Ole Miss are given Pulsing Gooners at this point. All of this is to say that is going to be the climactic showdown that sort of decides who is on top of the Zon division. But for the time being, the summit is going to have to be shared as we've got 2 undefeated teams in the Zon division.
A lot of fun with these tier 2 teams that we're seeing here. I got word ISU beat Polestar.
Wow.
So that's
something to talk about.
That's a big mark.
On the Salt Mine. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, make sure every Friday. Not this Friday. We didn't drop one this time.
My turn to plug.
Okay, yeah, you do it.
I got it. Yeah. We're going to be on the Salt Mine. It'll come out on Fridays. Be there or be square. That's all I got to say. I'm really bad at plugging these things. This is why Colors don't do sponsorships. Slayer, come back. I need your help.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so it'll be fun to talk about that, but congratulations once more to Ole Miss. Thank you, everybody who stuck around through 2 main Aegis streams. That's going to do it, though, for our Friday night action here. Yeah. We'll not have any weekend fun, as I will be celebrating my birthday. So I'll be out of here. Thank you, Quacks. And so make sure to be back here on Friday to not only listen to the Salt Mine Pod episode that will be dropping, but we'll have another featured match to be determined. Until then, folks, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy that Landshark win if you are a fan of Ole Miss. And we'll see you guys back here on Friday. We better for some more ACL action, courtesy of the Salt Mine.